He hasn't spoken a word.
Hello, creeps. It's your old pal, the Crypt Keeper. And you are now tuned in to my good fiends at Talks from the Crypt, the most gruesome podcast in the world.
Should I consider this round two? I mean, we were supposed to do yesterday, but we got shithoused on Friday. And,
so would that mean when we got shithouse was round one?
I guess this is a...
That was a pre-interview.
Yeah. But yeah, we went to the Double Down on Friday night. Have you guys been to Vegas before? Have you? I know you have.
Yeah, we've been there. Yeah. Separately before we met each other, but Double Down is always my go-to spot. If you don't go there when you're there, then who the hell are you?
Listen.
Like,
Yeah.
you're,
Listen.
Well, and there's another one in town called the Dive Bar. It's a lot nicer and bigger, and I don't like that. I mean, it's like Disney World and Disneyland. Like, I could take the smaller, dingier one. It almost makes it better.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but is there a Triple Down, which is in the Punk Rock Museum? Is that what that's called?
I think so, yeah.
Is that affiliated? Do you know?
It might be affiliated. I don't know if it officially is.
Yeah.
But they have the same artwork you would see in the bar.
I was
inside
just
of it.
there this morning. It was cool.
How'd you guys like that?
I went by myself, and she did a museum by herself. So we had limited time, so we had to pick and choose what our number one things we wanted to do.
Really wanted to go to Megamart.
Yeah. Or you could scoot in just a tad more.
And so I liked it so much, but growing up listening to punk rock and not only being dived into some really old school punk rock when I was younger, like stuff older than me, but then here seeing the stuff that I grew up with, it was really cool. They did a really good at bringing. They didn't discriminate against eras and type of punk rock and offshoots and subcategories, and so it was really cool. They had a Warped Tour section, which I didn't really think I would see. They had some emo bands, which I didn't think I would see. My
Chemical Romance is in there.
Yeah, a lot of stuff was in there. Like, I seen art of people that are regular shoppers at our store that was in there. I was like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So,
and then you went to Omega Mart, right?
I did. I went to the Area 15 and I did
Mm-hmm.
I did the Megamart thing. I threw axes. I actually met a few girls that were like celebrating their birthday and were neighbors. They were like, I recognize you. I was like, you do? And they were like, yeah, go to the Horror Bodega. I was like, no way.
That's amazing. That place had to have given you some ideas.
Oh, yeah. I loved it. It gave me a lot of inspiration of things that we were thinking of doing for, the next step of the bodega, which is like making our own like products and stuff. And it gave me a lot of, my juices were flowing, my creative juices.
Well, so let's preface this for people. Let's get into let's start with the genesis of the Mystic Museum. I mean, there was a story I heard you tell, and I want us to go through it again because I think it's a point in our lives that we all could get to where it could either make or break you. And in your case, you guys have everything that you have now, and I find it very inspiring. So what was the genesis of the Mystic Museum, the start of it, if you will?
Well, it started as an oddity shop first, vintage store, oddity shop. And so I'll give you the quick story of how like me just getting into that, owning my own business started and how it kind of like rotated into what is more known now as the Mystic Museum. So I was working a lot of dead-end jobs, a lot of jobs that weren't paying a lot of money. I moved out to California from Ohio with a career as a, line cook or a chef. And so I went to school for that. So I figured, okay, I move out to California. They're going to pay a lot more money. I'm going to get a better place. I'm going to figure the next chapter of my life out. Because back then when I moved here, I was, I wasn't in a relationship. When my band broke up, I was subleasing from somebody. They basically never paid the rent and got evicted. So that means I had to leave. And so everything was happening all at once. There was like nothing really there for me. And so anything that I could fit in my car went in my car, and anything that couldn't fit in my car went on the street. And I literally just drove across country for 3 days. And that's basically within like a week of the thought of it, I was already in California.
Wow.
And so there was not much planning. I had to like go to my job and just say, hey, 2 more days and I'm gone. They're like, what?
Was there plans prior? Like, did you want to do that since you were younger?
Well, I was born in LA.
Oh,
So,
okay.
or not LA, but I was born in Simi Valley,
Mm.
California, which is like 40 minutes north. And then, so I was like, there was always a thought that I might go back. But most of my upbringing and everything, when everyone asks me where I'm from, I always say Cleveland because I did everything there. I became who I was out there. My interest started out there. Besides for a lot of the 80s stuff, which was all, it didn't matter where you were from in the 80s as much as it mattered what your interests were as a kid, like riding your BMX bike and watching horror movies and all that stuff, which is basically what I did. And I had no concept of where I was living.
Right.
When, you get into your teenage years, you kind of have a concept of where you're living. And I don't know, I always definitely get a nod to Cleveland as being the place where I'm from. And, but then, so when all of that was going down, I was like, no relationship, no band, no. And that's what I was struggling to do, like in my 20s, was to tour in a band and make it in music. And when this was like the third band that was really trying to do it, and it was like, no, we're done. I was like, oh, okay, well then it's the next chapter of doing things not music wise. Let me see where I'm going to go. Let me take this culinary career to the next level. And when I got out here, I realized that the jobs actually paid less.
Yeah.
And it was the cost of living was way higher. And this was, I don't know, a long time ago. It was 27. I'm 46 now. So it's a long time ago. And so I quickly just rotated from job to job. And when I ended up going back into the cooking field because I really needed a job, I was managing a kitchen, and I went in there more as a kitchen consultant, so I didn't have to work as much. And they also said, hey, we do craft night days where you could set up a table and you could build stuff and you could sell your crafts. And I was making lamps out of like music equipment and very steampunk style lamps.
Mm.
And I did one show that was all right, but I did one show that was terrible. Nothing sold. So I got really depressed. I went on a long walk when I lived in North Hollywood down Magnolia Street. And if you're from that area, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I went all the way down Magnolia, and I saw a for rent sign in the window somewhere. And I said, okay, I guess that's what I'm doing. I got the landlord's number, called them, left a message. By the time I got home, they called me back. They're like, all right, let's do an interview. And I was scared because I was like, oh man, I have no money. I'm fully covered in tattoos. My credit's not that good. Like, they're not going to accept me. They're going to take one look at me and go, yeah, you're going to like, I don't want to rent to you. But lucky enough, the owner was very like, they came to my apartment to do an interview to get to get a storefront, which they don't do that anymore, by the way. And so they just want to know what I wanted to do. And I said, I want to do vintage stuff. I want to do weird stuff. I want to kind of like, just do kind of what I like. And lucky enough, the lady, she was a little bit older, and her husband was even older than her. But he drove her, and he was fully covered in tattoos, as in like an 80-year-old man. I'm like, yes. Oh, thank God. Okay. Now it's just her really getting to know me and not trying to judge me.
Right.
And sure enough, she's like, dude, you're just trying to do how I started out. So it's yours.
Yeah. And was
Yeah.
it just one part of the full-on store you guys have now, like one little section?
Yes. So what it was just the oddity section. We started off with just the oddities and vintage and antique stuff. And luckily enough that there was also an apartment attached. And like, I'll rent you the apartment too. And so that really saved me on money. So it was all this serendipitous stuff that was happening.
Did you live there?
I did live there for the first 5 years.
That's
I think.
amazing.
Yeah.
I love that shit.
Yeah. But what happened was, as the business expanded, we expanded back into the living quarters to where at one point I was living in just a room, a tiny room. Like the kitchen ended up being taken over for the vintage stuff, and the living room ended up being taken over. So if anyone remembers that shop, you'll notice there's a lot of tiny rooms to go through, which made it more fun. And then when it got to the point where, okay, I now could afford an apartment and then get another apartment. And then this is where the Mystic Museum comes into play. So that was a longer story than I wanted to say. But
No, it's perfect.
so then the landlord came one day and said, listen, we're not renewing the lease. I have I think it was like a relative that wants to rent the place. So unfortunately, family comes first. So when your lease is gone, we're going to rent to her. And then you have to get another place. And so hustling to try to look for a place. Found a place right next, finally found a place. And then by that time, everything has changed. Everything was just based off credit and income and stuff. So we had to everything was just paperwork. Finally got accepted to a place. And at the same week, we got accepted to a new place to move the shop. That's where the landlord comes back and says, I'm not doing it anymore. You guys can stay. We're like, what?
Wow.
We're like, all right, what do we do? Because we didn't want to do it. So we kept both.
Yeah.
And then that's where the oddity store expanded into what ended up being a personal collection that I was curating during the first few years of the oddity store, of Ouija boards and tarot decks and mystical stuff. And that's where the first exhibit and store opened up, the Mystic Museum.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I want to get into a little bit of what people have given you guys later, because I heard that some people will just come by and drop stuff off. But
Yes.
to now bridge the Mystic Museum with the Horror Bodega, how did you two meet?
We met on a dating app. We started dating. I thought his profile was hilarious. So I was like, all right, you don't seem like that much of a creep. I'm just kidding. And I had never heard of the Mystic Museum before dating him. I was coming from New York, just sort of finding who, my second page in life.
What'd you do in New
LA.
York?
I worked in fashion. I did a lot of styling, window displays. So I was building a lot. I was also doing showrooms. So I was curating collections for Market Week and stuff like that. And when I moved to LA, I realized that number one, they didn't really pay what I was making in New York. And number two, I realized that they also didn't have that same person there. They were just using whatever their counterpart of me in New York was, and was like, oh, here's the SOP of the New York person. Just have one of your sales associates do it.
So
And I was
isn't that
like,
funny
oh,
that
wow.
that you would think moving to California, because the cost of living is higher, that you would get paid more?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I guess that was the expectation a lot of people have. And apparently it's not.
I still
Yeah.
have that expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
So I kind of just had to really be like, all right, what's important to me? I really didn't want to keep working 80, 100-hour weeks, because that's what my schedule was like. It was very project based. So I was constantly piggybacking different projects, one after the other. And I was like, let's take a little break. Let's just focus on balance and just money. So then I kind of went the corporate route, and I started working in finance and real estate investment, and I was working on the administrative side. And that's when I met Eric, and he would come home, and just in passing, we would obviously talk about our days at work, and he would sort of be like, oh man, we could really use some help doing this or that, or I wish we could do more of this. And it was all stuff within my realm of operations.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's how I kind of started to learn more about Mystic in the Workway. And around that time, they were also looking into the bodega space. And the stipulation...
Who was? Eric was?
Yeah, Eric
Okay.
was. The stipulation for that space was it had to be food related. That was what the landlord wanted. And so they went through a lot of iterations of what that could possibly be. But when we had to look at everything logistically, we realized having any kind of restaurant is extremely hard in a space that small. It would really just be a counter.
Right.
Up against the door because
have
of
to be-
how much
it would have to be
space you needed
takeout.
for for a kitchen and following all the regulations. And so
That's interesting though.
Yeah.
What were the ideas you guys were kicking around before the
Well,
bodega ended up?
Well,
I
the
think
first
he
and
was
foremost
yeah.
was a restaurant.
Yeah.
That we want to get into
more
that space.
fast
Yeah,
food,
yeah.
almost
Burgers?
a horror themed grilled cheese sandwich
Yeah.
shop sort
Okay.
of situation. They even did like a test kitchen with which I was a part of, and we were just like, playing around in the test kitchen of like, oh, what if we did like this recipe or that recipe, and like testing out the equipment, and it was fun. But ultimately, we settled with like food retail, and that's sort of how the bodega aspect came into it. It was something that I think he wanted to incorporate even in a small aspect of having the restaurant. And then we sort of pivoted, 180 down that direction. And we kind of drew on both of our like common interests and inspirations. And one of the things that I really wanted to incorporate into the bodega was like, I feel like I'm a guest coming in to Mystic. Like Mystic's been around for like 12 years and I'm coming around like this is my second year-ish sort of thing. So I was like, if this is like a you and I project, I want to feel like there is me in there. So we're trying to do a very different aesthetic, something more whimsical, nostalgic, really kind of like things that reminded me of like hanging out with my dad and going to Blockbuster or like going to the bodega down the street in New York. And it's very much like, and I've said this before and a couple times, like everything that we ever wanted as a kid, like we just put in there, it's like healing your inner child with adult money. Like everything that your parents was like, oh, that's weird, don't buy that. Or like, no, like you can't have that. Like we don't need that kind of thing. And it's like all of that, like the candy cigarettes and, like weird little gummies that are spiders or eyeballs or whatever. Like, it's all of it's just happy place.
I
like
would say, as we were, having a lot of conversations and brainstorming on what this space should be, because we've had the space for about a year, maybe a little under, and just deciding, all right, it's time that it's not storage anymore, that it actually becomes something. And I know the landlord was really like, even though if you pay the rent, you could do whatever you want as long as it's food, but you don't have to open up as long as you pay the rent. But so he did express, hey, everyone's open up now, because it was a remodeled building and everyone's open up now. It's all new places. Would really like it if it was an empty storefront. We're like, okay, we have to develop a new concept from what originally we said we were going to do. So give me like a couple weeks and I'll let you know. And then literally it took about a week or something as we were developing what it should be and the name, the concept, how we wanted it to look different than Mystic Museum.
The turnaround was about 4 months.
Yeah. From that
concept
day.
to completion.
From concept to completion to like opening our doors.
Wow.
It was about 4 months. And, obviously like we're both very detail oriented and kind of perfectionists. So there were many moments where we were like, oh my God, it's not ready. It's not ready. It's not. But, like in making any kind of like art, especially for consumption, like sometimes like, you might get this in, doing YouTube for 4 years, like sometimes you put out something that you're like, I don't know if it's quite ready yet.
Yeah.
And like, it won't matter. They'll eat it up if they love it kind of thing. And you can still kind of like evolve along the way. And that's what, we've been doing. And
you got to worry about rent. Rent's
Yeah.
got to be paid.
Right.
So it's got to be open up. But
Yeah.
in the research of, figuring all this out, I was very surprised to realize I've never seen or never, we Googled tried everything we could do to figure this out. There is not a horror themed convenience store.
Yeah.
Which is
Bodega.
insane.
Yeah.
Like
Which is
we're the
insane.
very
Yeah.
first one.
I was
Yeah.
like, how is this?
Who coined the term bodega?
I think that was it.
That was you?
Yeah.
Fucking fire
Yeah.
name.
It's so funny though, because like it's such, you are split down the middle. You either get it and you love it, but we literally have 1-star reviews of people that don't understand that it's a convenience store. And they'll be like, I remember reading one to my mom because I thought it was so funny. And this girl was just like, this is what happens when people with money have nothing to do. This
Jesus.
absolutely sucked my soul out. It's a nothing store.
As we're trying to figure out how to pay rent that month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people with money, like
And she was
who
like,
do you
it's
think we
just
are? Yeah.
snacks. And I'm like, that's the point.
It's
Yeah,
just
it's called
the
a
point.
bodega.
it's a convenience
It's a
store.
convenience store.
Of course, there's snack. You know, like it's just like
that's the whole point.
I also too one of the things we had to like. We're really trying to get people to know about this new store is that it's not just a pop up.
yeah.
And it's not just an extension of Mystic Museum. It's from half part is from the owners of Mystic Museum. It's its own company, its own brand, its own
Mhm.
everything, and it's going to be a permanent store that's going to continue to be not only resemble these really fun pop-ups that everyone sees, but you could go anytime and it's going to still be there, but it'll be an actual functioning store.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that was a lot of things that people didn't realize, that it was a functioning convenience store, a functioning bodega.
Well, you know, why I'm such a big fan of your guys' work is because I find that nowadays when people end up opening something like whether it's a restaurant or a I'm beeping that. it's they go halfway. You know, they'll
Sure.
paint the wall and that's the extent of what they do. I remember first going to the Mystic Museum and I remember I never went to the bodega yet, but I scrolled past something on Instagram and I just remember being like, this is how you fucking do it. This is how you're supposed to do it. This is what we wish everybody would do.
Mhm.
Because I feel like our generation is way more nostalgic than any other generation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I doubt the 60s fucking reminisced about the 40s, aka the worst time ever in America.
Well, if you ever look at like when you're growing up and I listened to classic rock and I thought I was listening to old music, the time period from when I listened to it thinking it was nostalgic was so short
Mhm.
compared to like, it's actually shorter than me revisiting my emo childhood and now playing in an emo cover band. We can talk about that later.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
like being like,
Love it.
that's actually a longer time frame.
Right.
It was it's like, that's 20 years opposed to 10 years.
Mhm.
And so in the 80s, I'm listening to classic rock, listening to 70s music, think I'm listening to this old music.
Yeah.
And now I'm, 2025, I'm listening to emo stuff that came out 25 years ago.
Yeah, like Hawthorne
Yeah,
Heights. You're like,
yeah.
oh man, back in the day.
Yeah,
So I was
yeah.
just like, oh, wow.
I mean, I think our generation
Yeah.
is also like okay with revisiting that and not snubbing their noses at it to be like, that was for teenagers or whatever. You know what I mean? They don't look down on nostalgia the way that maybe like,
I think it's-
older
yeah.
generations are like, when are you going to grow up? And I'm like,
This
I
is
pay my
yeah,
bills. This
yeah.
is what I
Yeah.
do. I could do whatever the fuck I want.
I
you know,
think I
like-
think this generation of people that are really into nostalgic stuff is also into identity and how that is their identity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So not only is it nostalgic, it makes them feel good, but they realize there are other people out there. And we talked about this when we were drinking a bunch of times of how we're this community and we, especially in the horror community. And I think that's a lot of the things where the nostalgic aspect comes into it, is that we want to feel like we belong and that we have people that are just like us.
Yeah.
And that's what nostalgic does too.
But
Yeah.
also, I feel like, we're not letting anybody else really dictate what makes us feel happy.
Yeah.
We're not like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not allowed to enjoy this. We're just like, no, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy whatever I want. And if that's like something from my childhood, then so be it. Like, it's not like nobody's hiding it. Like, you'll go to people's offices and see like, like figurines and toys and trinkets and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, that's the executive.
Yeah.
Like, no, not everyone is like, oh, I have to put it away and get my, bowl of fruit. And I don't know what you put on a desk. Why did I say a bowl of
Bowl of
fruit?
fruit's good. That's
Sure.
hospitality.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
there you go.
I'd be blown away. I'd be like, wow, they got strawberries.
It's probably
Wow, that's an adult.
It's ceramic fruit. It's like
Yeah.
fake fruit.
Yeah.
But that is true, though. I mean, as fans of the genre, we wear it on our sleeves so
Mhm.
much more. Like, you don't see action movie T-shirts. I mean, I've seen a couple. but
Yeah.
it's not like a regular thing as often as you'd see.
I
Jason
will say,
Voorhees.
here's the thing about what we do in the bodega, and we're talking a lot about the bodega, but that's awesome because I think people really need to know about this store, is that we do so much like sub categories of horror,
Mhm.
all the way to like maybe just fantasy and action. But there's movies where I think that are like just labeled as action movies that I think resonate more with the horror community. Let's say like Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, or March for Death.
Or Running Man, or
Right.
like, and I think all of that is within that compass of of horror, and so that's why if you do see an action T-shirt, it's probably going to be on a horror fan,
Yeah.
and it's probably going to be one of those movies that kind of fit within that, or
Yeah.
like a nostalgic movie. Let's say Flight of the Navigator, which
Yeah.
I'm sure if you got some older people watching this, they know exactly what it is. But there's going to be so we'll do that. We'll have like stuff that is ET related, which is more sci-fi, which obviously I think is 100% a subcategory of horror.
Yeah.
And then we'll have things that are like Goonies related, which is 100% is going to be in that adjacent subcategory of
80s
horror.
and horror
Yeah.
are like
Mhm.
peanut
Yeah.
butter and
Yeah.
chocolate.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just go right together.
Like, let's say an example, you'll see Reese's Pieces. You know, does it have a horror label? No, but if you know, you know. We
Yeah.
we call it if you know, you know.
You
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
hear anybody say Reese's Pieces?
Yes, all the time.
It
Yeah.
pisses
yeah.
me off because it's like it's not Reese's. It's Reese
Mhm.
apostrophe S.
Yeah.
And then they were like, everyone called it Reese's, so they were like,
Yeah.
all right, well, let's come out with Reese's Pieces. Maybe everyone will know.
Yeah.
They changed the fucking word pieces
Yeah.
Yeah.
to fit their narrative. I hate that.
So well, yeah, we like to have this section called you know section, which is basically things that are featured in movies that don't necessarily have a horror label or tag on it. Like, and maybe you guys could play this game at home and want to put this in the comments. Is
Yeah.
let's say Reese's Pieces,
A
Baby
Zagnut.
Ruth, a Zagnut,
Yeah.
Rocky Road. What else Twinkie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you know, you know, and then so that's another thing is like we have to worry about, negative. Well, there's no horror stuff in there. It's like, well, first of all, there's a lot, and second
Oh,
of all,
yeah.
there's those things that are like really for the nostalgic people that know. Oh my God, what's another one? The monster pops.
Oh, the Monster Pop from
Yeah.
Jawbreaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're supposed to guess it.
Sorry,
But
my
it's
bad.
okay.
Alien snot, too, as well.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, Alien's not
yeah.
like so.
We have a lot of
yeah,
fun. Like,
That's the sodas, yeah.
sodas and
And
stuff
then,
like
but there is a ton of franchise, trademark, branded stuff and licensed stuff in there too, as well.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I thought there would be so much more, and there's such a like lack in that.
That's a business idea right
Oh my
there.
gosh!
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, that's what we're
why
gonna be
is
doing.
that? Yeah,
Fuck yes.
I mean that's where we get really excited in terms of the growth of the bodega, because I'm like, I see a lot of places, like being able to go to Meow Wolf today in the Mega Mart. I was just like, wow, this is it. This is our vibe. This is fun. We can
Mm.
get wacky with it, and I loved seeing all of that. It really inspired me to be like, no holds bar. I could get as weird as I want because look at everyone
Yeah.
loves it. You know what I mean?
The weirder, the better. The more unique, the better.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, there's this, I read an article a long time ago about how if you look at architecture and the color of buildings, how they've gotten more plain over
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And how it's like really
Mhm.
wearing on the public psychology where it makes us more complacent. It makes us more okay with mediocrity.
Yeah.
And your guys' spot is just so decorated to the fucking nines. Like you said,
You
it's
know,
like when you walk in, it's like a blast from the past.
You know,
I
it's really
appreciate
funny
that, but
because
we were talking about that coming to Vegas, being like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like Vegas is like because our shop is kind of considered like an immersive experience.
yeah.
And we're like, Vegas in general, the whole city is an immersive experience.
Yeah, we're a drop in the
Yeah.
ocean. Like
Yeah.
I am so in awe of like the art and the
Just
immersive
how they
experience that
decorate
you
their
guys
buildings.
have.
Yeah.
Like it's so impressive, and
They don't just put up hotels.
Yeah.
They make sure that
Like-
it is themed and decorated like crazy, especially the old school ones. I see some very generic, straight up towers that are being built here. Some newer
Right.
ones are more like streamlined, like I would say more like modern. But
Right.
then you see some that are like completely like the front of it is like crazy, and you're just like, they're literally did a giant statue of such and such, and I'm gonna go, that's, if I could get on that level, that would be great. Who wants to
I
sponsor
mean,
me to
it's
open up a casino?
definitely it's definitely
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
lack of funds for
Yeah.
sure. Because I think we're pretty resourceful with what we can afford to build, but like there are so many ideas that I'm always like, trying to bring to the Mystic Museum, where I'm like, well, they did this in this weird museum. What if we tried something like that?
Right.
And he's like, oh, we've never tried anything like that before. Because as much as I love the horror community and the haunted houses and all of that stuff, like I really do like love to kind of marry like those experiences of like all of these like really beautiful art installations that are immersive that you don't really see done in a horror way. And I like to bring more of that
Right.
stuff into it. So I don't know. The trip was really fun. I have a lot of ideas running through my head in terms of like, what we can incorporate back home.
So this was definitely
Yeah.
a tax write-off trip. So
R&D,
Thank you. Yeah.
baby.
Some R&D, yeah.
Research and
Yeah.
development.
And even at the Punk Rock Museum, like even though that's so like that's like literally who I am, but like far removed from what I do in the community. Not that far removed, but like I'm looking at like displays. How do they do it? Glass cases, things like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's so
yeah.
funny. Literally, when we were going through the other museum, like half of the things that we're doing, like people called us the braved ones in our
Oh,
group.
the
because-
Zach Baggins Museum.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
were we were going because they were like, people would be like, I don't want to go in there, and I'm like, oh, I want to go in there. They were like, and they're like,
one
you're
was
not
a crawl
scared.
space
Yeah.
that literally you have to crawl through,
Yeah.
pitch black.
Yeah.
And,
I was the first one. I was like, let me in, let me in.
and we're just walking through, and they're like, it's like, well, you don't understand. We do ghost hunts
Yeah.
at our shop.
Yeah.
I'm like,
we have a
the
resident
shop
ghost.
is haunted,
Yeah.
so it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll
we
just say
live
hi.
this life.
Yeah,
But like there was like a haunted chair, and if you have the RIP, which is their VIP pass, they allow you to go through this velvet rope to get right in front of the haunted chair that was from Conjuring 3, but
Yeah.
it's the real chair in real
Yeah.
They
life.
say their
Yeah.
back hurts or
Yeah,
something.
and
Yeah.
you could sit and you could go up to the chair, and we were more concerned about how they had the automatic door open up that revealed the chair.
Uh-huh.
we
And
were
we're
like,
just-
ooh,
and we're
what are
just
the
looking at the
mechanics
hinges,
up in
and
here?
they're
This
like-
is a good
Yeah.
setup. Wow,
Yep.
like,
They could probably tell
Yeah.
you guys were museum owners.
oh
Well,
yeah,
they had
probably.
they bought stuff from us, and it was in there. I
Yeah.
saw them.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I remember when Zach
Yeah.
Baggins came to the store and bought these things. So I saw like at least 5 things, and one major thing, which was like these 2 wax figure dolls, these old people. And
So
it-
Zach Baggins bought stuff from you guys?
oh yeah,
Wow, that's fucking incredible.
he was at the original shop years ago. He was he's been, I think every time he's in town, he makes a trip there.
Mm.
And then I do remember the few months before the museum opened up, he was coming in a lot or sending people, or was there specifically to buy a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
for his museum. And this is my first time in the Zach Baggins Haunted Museum, and
it was
I
amazing.
saw the stuff.
It
and I
was
was
so
like, wow,
impressive.
Yeah.
It was
it's a
down to the
lot.
nines, and it's like the production value was amazing. Like every time we go to like horror nights or Knott's Berry Farm, like we're always there with like a curious eye, being like, how do they do this? How do they do this? How
Yeah.
do they do this? And sometimes like you can kind of see through the veil pretty quickly and be like, oh, you just did that. I could do that. Okay, cool. Like we should do that
I
more.
don't even
But
think I told you this, but like, so a long time ago, it came in, and there was this friend of mine that the camp horror section of the Mystic Museum.
yeah.
So we have these flickering, like those old school gas lamps, but
Mhm.
we made them electric, so that way you could use them. He basically got a hold of our friends who made those for us, and they made like 50 of them for his museum. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, I see those. Those are from my friend's company
Awesome.
that he got through coming to the
Yeah.
Mystic Museum. And so there was a lot of crossover there. And then, a lot of the museum reminded me of our seance parlor that we have. That is part of almost every experience. It's our permanent experience.
I don't think I've seen
yeah.
that. Where's that at?
That's actually
might have.
if you haven't been there in the last year, it changes and moves around all the
Well,
time.
he went to Evil Dead, so he might
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, it was the front part. No, it was the back part of Evil Dead.
Which
It's where
What
all
was
the
It was
a separate
Ouija
location.
boards were.
Remember there was a down the street location, like a pop up that we had.
see, I'm
Yeah.
what pops in my head are all the props, like getting
Yeah.
in the
Mm,
fucking
yeah, yeah.
Oldsmobile.
Yeah, because we did. You know
Yeah.
what we did? We did kind of pull a lot of stuff from that to put. There's so many
okay.
props that we got from Evil
Well,
Dead.
I mean, you're coming
Yeah.
next week.
Yeah,
so you'll
exactly.
Be able to
You'll see it.
Yeah.
It's literally the last room you go through as a bonus museum. If you go through the current exhibit, which is Totally Grotesque Live, which we'll explain later, and the last room is a bonus museum, and that's what it is. It's a seance parlor. It's usually where we host most of our magic shows, actual seances,
Our paranormal investigation.
paranormal investigations. We
and all
do
of
ghost
that.
stories. We do seminars.
Yeah.
So you guys mentioned earlier, just in passing, almost like it was normal, that it's haunted.
Oh, I forget. Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's get into that.
Yeah.
Now, were you guys warned it was haunted when you first looked at the location, or did you find out after?
Oh, after you think a realtor will ever tell you it's haunted? No,
That, to a
Yeah.
horror fan, that's like an upsell.
100%. But apparently, like the reason they won't do it, it lands on the same spectrum of if someone passed away in there.
Mm.
And for commercial, you don't have to disclose that. You do have to disclose that in real estate, residential,
Yeah.
but only up to a certain amount of years. And then, so I don't think they really want to know anyone know, and I don't think they knew. You know, you really have to be perceptive and be in there long enough, stay there overnight to hear the stuff that happens at the witching hour and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part,
It's
most
getting
people,
pretty bold though. It's not
Yeah.
waiting till the witching hour. It'll be like
Jesus.
7:30.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like
most of the companies that were in there prior to us just were like, oh, we open 11 to 5 and then we close. We're there all night, all the time.
Yeah.
So I think we have like stake in the game, and the ghosts are finally being like, you're not leaving. Damn it. Wait, can we
I
can we
don't
swear?
know if they want it.
Oh,
I don't know
you're
if
not
they
leaving,
want us to
fuck.
leave. Like they
Yeah.
don't seem like a get out of here kind of ghost. Like some of them are very much like, you know, we're just ships passing in the we're just roomies. Like they're doing their thing, we're doing ours. And sometimes I feel like they want to like, I don't know, they get bored and they play with us.
Right. Now, in what way?
Yeah.
So, like, what's some experiences you guys have had?
He's definitely had more than I have being there for as long as he has had. But I had been there for a full year before I had thought that I'd experience anything because, you know,
Did you believe it at first?
I did. And not in the like, I don't know. I had never experienced anything really paranormal before, but I was definitely one of those people that I was like, you know, I can't imagine that it's just us. You
Mm.
know, there's got to be something out there. So I was always definitely open to the possibility, but I had not received any confirmation yet. And then, you know, finally something happened and I was like, oh yeah, no, okay. I was right.
What was it?
It happened to him first, and then several days it happened to me. It was we were staying late, working on the exhibit, moving things around, knocking walls down, painting, like making a ruckus. And he was staying late one day, and he had moved the Annabelle doll that we have into just a storage closet. And he was just like literally like on camera, just looking around, and you see like the door just like. You see him turn around and like stare at the door, and then it just opens and he holds it and he's like,
I stop it.
Jeez.
I stop
Okay.
it from going. So I was, we could tell this story. There's some other stories, but I've told them plenty of times, and it's been
Yeah, let's get the
I'd rather
unknown.
I'll tell
Yeah.
you some of the newer ones. So I'm in there because it's actually the build, and everything happens while you're kicking up dust, while you're building stuff, tearing stuff down. So it's in the build of the new exhibit that's currently up now. And funny enough, we have I got to say this legally. We have a area of the new exhibit that is inspired by The Conjuring. All right. And so I'm sitting there, and you literally see me do this, just like hands on hip looking. And the reason I'm doing that is because that's kind of how I develop how the decor will go, how it's going to look, what space, and because it's already a preset building that I can't tear down walls. I can build up fake walls, but I can't tear the stuff down. So what section in this building will fit best for what area? And I'm looking at the area that's going to be The Conjuring, and how am I going to build this one awesome thing that is an activation, and other sections that is inspired by The Exorcist, and how we're going to do this. And so I just look kind of like an artist looks at a blank canvas, and where is my first line going to go? And I sit there, and then all of a sudden I hear a click, click, and I'm like, and it's the click, click is exactly what a door hinge when you open the door and click a door open.
Mhm.
That's exactly what it is. So it was also look right back at the door. The door wasn't even open, but then as I look at it, it starts swinging open.
Jesus.
And then so you just see me take a couple steps, stop it from swinging, and then you just see me kind of like, there's no audio because we actually have video, and you guys could look it up. We'll probably put it on YouTube so you guys can look it up.
Yeah.
And then I just go, you basically see me consciously go, nope. And I turn all the lights off, everything. And this is where it gets even crazier. Locked within 2 minutes, have lights off, like and I didn't even turn all of them off. I was just like, I
He was
have
just
to like,
I gotta go.
and then I set the alarm and locked the door. I closed that door though. I
Mhm.
closed it. And then the minute the cameras adjust from light to no light to do the infrared,
The night vision.
night vision,
Yeah.
you just see that door go and open up
Jesus.
again. And I go, oh my God.
So
Yeah.
several days later, we are back at the exhibit after hours and we're making a list of things that we need to buy before opening. And he's like, oh, I need to bring this into the room. So he leaves the back and goes to the front of the shop to get it. And me remembering this story, I'm just like, let me see something real quick, right? So before he leaves, he's talking, we're going over stuff, and I clock the door that it's open. I go and I close it. I make sure it's fully closed because I'm like, let me see if this happens again. And he goes to grab this mannequin to bring it to the exhibit just so it's in the same room that it needs to be in. And I'm sitting maybe about like 8 feet away from the door over to the right, and I hear the latch. And it didn't it's not like it popped open. It waits for me to look at it because I'm like,
Oh,
I give it like
shit.
2 full seconds to like really look at it. And then when I look at it, it opens. I start screaming Eric's name, and then it stopped and opened faster.
Jesus.
And I was like, Eric.
So
my
that's
God.
and that's on video too. We'll make a compilation. We'll post it on YouTube. I don't know why we don't do that often.
It already
Do
is
it.
on there
Yeah,
when you
okay.
talk. It's
It's on
on
you-
Instagram.
Oh, it's
Like
on
I
Instagram.
posted it like
we should
literally
do it on
like
YouTube though. But
yeah,
like,
YouTube for sure.
we should
Sure, yeah.
with descriptions and edit the videos together so they
Yeah.
can see the ones because
Yeah.
we cut it on camera. So the problem with the camera, it's not directly at the door,
yeah.
but you do see the door open. But what solidifies this as a paranormal experience to me is that a door could maybe swing open. You know what I mean? Sure. Maybe the weight of the door, some kind of weird wind that came in. I don't know where that would have came from, but is a door does not swing open, stop, then keep opening
No.
Yeah.
at a different speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't do that. And so, yeah, that's
No.
but there's 2 more
Oh,
kickers to
yeah,
the
yeah,
story.
yeah.
One is the funny thing is as I'm looking at the Conjuring inspired area, when I look at the door, because I hear the click of the door opening, what do I have stored? Because it's a closet. What do I have stored in there for the build? Because I buy stuff ahead of time.
hmm
The Annabelle doll
Did you guys hear about that guy who
Yes.
just fucking
Yes.
died?
just passed away. Because oh my God.
That.
And that's not even the first story like that with that.
Oh
doll.
gosh.
But
yeah.
the last kicker of this story is there's no latch on that door.
Well, yeah. There's no hardware.
So there's no clicking sound
There's
to be
nothing
made.
that could even make that noise.
But it's also, so when you close it, it's stuck closed.
Yeah.
So for when employees
We've
have to
landlord
open it,
specialed it so many times in terms of like painting that
So
door
when
a
employees have to
gajillion
open
times.
it,
So
they have
it
to-
does like it gets sticky.
Yeah.
So you have to pull it open. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just can't just open because it's
not
stuck.
it's not loose
Yeah.
like that. It wouldn't just naturally like just do that. You would have to like physically be like,
Right.
Yeah.
Now I know my comment section. They're skeptics.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And so, do you guys believe that is there a qualifier to become a ghost, or is it just everyone dies and they become ghosts?
What
I think
all right,
there
this is
are.
what I believe. First of all, I think being a skeptic is perfectly okay.
yeah.
I honestly think being a skeptic, especially if I'm not like a super, super, super believer, but I will say as somebody, if you talk to somebody who is like, let's say a ghost hunter or a super believer, somebody who's like really like a psychic medium, someone that talks to the other side,
Yeah.
and this is purely my theory, and then you talk about it, somebody who's on this far side of it, who's a skeptic, is one of my theories is the reason why this psychic medium can contact it is because she has opened up her
Yeah.
or their third eye to see this and to talk to people, and they're open-minded. I think if you are a skeptic, you are perfectly okay and safe from anything because you have protected yourself through this idea that it doesn't exist. So therefore, you have put up a brick wall to any negative energy that might come from, let's say, a demonic possession, which I think that is so super rare compared to just a general ghost sighting or a positive ghost sighting.
Mhm.
Right.
Because if you think about in a religious aspect, like angels
Mhm.
would technically be a spirit from the other side and guardian angels. And
Mhm.
so not all supernatural things are negative.
Right.
It could be a guardian angel. It could be a loved one. It could be just somebody that there's to protect you, somebody that needs a safe space, which is what we've kind of coined our store as. It's a passing through space where people could feel safe on their way to where they're going because we're not negative against it. We're not scared of it. We're open-minded and we want to see what's happening. We're also slightly a skeptic too, because we
Yeah.
want to make sure that we just don't throw willy-nilly theories out there or like, oh, the book fell off the shelf, so there must be a ghost.
Right.
Well, there was an
Well,
earthquake.
healthy
You know what I mean?
amount- a
no,
healthy amount of
yeah.
logic.
Yeah.
You know, like, do you watch that show Evil?
No.
Okay, I love
put
the
it up now, though.
premise of it because it's like a psychologist, just kind of a techie, skeptic, scientist guy, and then obviously someone of the church that investigates like cases, right? Whether they be angelic or demonic or whatever. And half the time, so it's not reality. It's like a scripted show. But
Mm.
half the time it is just like, oh, your pipes are old, or like, you know, there's a draft and it causes this and blah, blah, blah kind of thing. And so I like to believe that I have a healthy amount of like curiosity and skepticism, and I'm not just like, oh my God, that's definitely a ghost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
It's-
when I do find something that I'm just like, well, that's not normal.
Yeah.
like,
It's
I'm
unexplainable.
I'm still open to that, to be like, yeah, okay.
And
Maybe I
being-
can't explain that, and I'm okay with it.
the Mystic Museum being the Mystic Museum. I mean, like the whole store started from a Ouija board or spirit board collection. So we have one of the largest spirit board collections in the country, if not the world.
Mm.
I'm sure there's some people with way bigger ones than me, but you know, I've been collecting for a very long time. I love it, ephemera, everything, and that's kind of a lot of stuff you'll see in the seance parlor. So being like that, I think you can't just accept everything to being paranormal. You have to be a little bit skeptic. Otherwise, you know, you don't have any debunking. And that's what I love about certain ghost hunting shows,
Mm.
Yeah.
which some has filmed at the shop and some has inquired to like Zach Baggins inquired of filming at the shop.
What happened to that?
It just hasn't happened yet. I mean, I think it's conflict. It's with every time that some of that stuff has happened, it's always been like, we're in town for the week. How can we work this out? And then it just like, okay, things fell through, but next time.
Yeah.
And so we're,
Yeah.
I was trying to figure that. But a lot of independent teams have come and investigated there.
Mhm.
And you could even probably find a lot of that stuff on YouTube and some of these other channels. But like they're always caught something that's really cool. Is you have to have that skepticism, but also like we like to cater to the curiosity of people that do want to do that. So we do ghost hunts there. We do storytelling times where you could come in and hear all of our stories, because I have like at least 10 really great stories. You could do seances. You could rent it for your own private paranormal investigation. And even in the store, you'll see that we do sell everything from like occult items, witchcraft items. We have ghost hunting equipment. We have religious items. So it's like we don't discriminate against, you know, any kind of religion out there. And you'll see a lot of that represented in the store itself, especially as the gift shop of the Mystic Museum. But
Right.
obviously you'll just see a lot of really cool just horror merchandise as well.
Now, have you guys ever felt anything evil in there?
No, never.
So it's all
Not-
positive.
Not evil, but not warm and fuzzy either. You know, I won't say too much because we are still trying to look into this. But what we've realized about like the haunting of the Mystic Museum is that it's not necessarily the space sometimes. Sometimes there are things that we've brought in through antique furniture, like a doorway, you know, an antique door, like a photo or whatever. So one of the psychic mediums kind of coined it as like, yeah, think of it as like your store has become kind of like a train station of like people sort of like coming and going, not just with the space itself, but with the things in there. And they're every once in a while, I mean, but not every once in a while, like when we've done this consistently, there are certain areas that have a very different feel. So like in this area of the shop, like we'll be able to channel this, which feels warmer, fuzzier, more playful, like childlike a little bit. Like, you know, it wants to play hide and seek with you. It wants to like kind of scare you, but in a fun way. And then over here, you feel a little bit more like argumentative, something that like, you know, is a little bit insulting and is confrontational kind of thing. It not necessarily like evil, inhumane, but like you can tell it was probably a human before. And there's one thing that we definitely want to look into more that feels a little true crimey in the sense of like, this is like it keeps popping up at every investigation. And the more that it does, like we've been really good at like not sharing our experiences and also asking everyone that has come to not share it so that people don't come in with preconceived notions of like, oh, I heard this story, I need to go look into it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because we want them to really get like a raw, you know, experience without any kind of like, I'm specifically looking for something. But every single time they will always find every group different, you know, they don't know each other, has always kind of find these 3 or 4 storylines of, you know, people or things that want to make itself known at the shop. And like, you know, the true crimey one, I'm definitely more interested in because I want to be like, did it get solved?
Now I gotta know.
You know, like,
What is it?
man, we're going really.
you
we're
have
go-
to come to this one. We're
All right, so basically, we do this series of ghost investigations, and we have 2 really awesome hosts that do it with us.
shout out to Zachariah and Ainsley.
Yeah, so she's a paranormal investigator and also a food reviewer. I would
Yes,
say, yeah,
spooky foodie.
Spooky foodie,
She does,
which is perfect for the
yeah.
bodega.
She
so-
loves like looking into
Yeah.
like restaurants and bars
Yeah.
that are haunted, like, and also she loves food, so she
And-
kind of marries her, you know, love for
And then-
food and spooky stuff.
So and then Zachariah, who basically hosts the seance
Mm-hmm.
and the paranormal stuff, and then they both really dive deep into helping everybody with the ghost hunt investigation, as well as we do participate as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this combination of like, you know, a ghost investigator, a witch, psychic medium, and then the owners of the store and their stories, and you know, I've have experience with ghost hunting is a really great experience. But we've been, after the first one, we realized we have to kind of like do more, and then eventually we're gonna do a whole night of everyone coming back that participated in each one. So you could either go to multiple
Yeah,
ones,
kind
or
of
just
like
go
a
to one.
tell-all of like,
Yeah.
hey,
And it's gonna
you
be
know,
a party.
you were here
Yeah.
for the second investigation, you were here for the third, you were here for the fourth, and here's a presentation of all the dots connected.
Wow.
You guys found this name out, you found this part out.
Yeah.
Let me like,
And then
you
at
know,
the same
whiteboard
time,
it and
as-
show you everything that we like put together in the sense of like, in my own time, I want to like look into the actual stories
Yeah,
of like
so
who these people are and like what actually happened to them.
So we'll be doing
Yeah.
real investigative work of the history of the building
Mhm.
behind the scenes while we're doing these. And then we'll bring everyone together. And the reason we don't want to say anything is because we don't want people who want to go do the ghost hunt before we do that reveal to already have like something in their head of what's going to happen or what it is.
Expectations.
Yeah,
Mhm.
expectations. So what you want is you want the evidence from people who do not know anything to corroborate each other.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
And also, you just
yeah.
want them to go in with an open mind. You
Mhm.
don't want them to be pigeonholed in this like scavenger hunt of
Yeah.
things that they've heard about online. You just want them to be like, just be open.
Right.
And, you know, that will lead you to
Yeah.
find more things than if you were just only looking for the things that you think that are there.
Well, and it
Yeah.
gives you guys more intel as the owners, because if multiple people are coming to these things and their stories corroborate
Yes.
and you
Yeah.
could link things together yourselves, you're like, okay, This makes it a lot more tangible.
So
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
the things you get when you get a ticket to the event and you come to the event is you get a notepad and a pen, and it's part of the experience. So you get a lot of these things, and so you write down stuff. So everyone gets one, so they get this little diary that they could keep in the museum from what they experienced in the museum, and then that way, and some people will leave them with us, and then we could highlight the stuff and corroborate stuff from other stories. People will take them with them, and then they'll share their stories with us. A lot of times people don't want to say what really they were experienced until later. They'll message us later.
Oh, yeah.
They'll
yeah.
email us, and then we'll put that in the whole
Sometimes I
story.
think it's also like a lot to process if they did genuinely experience something and also experience something for the first time, that they take a minute to be like, what just happened?
Right.
And then they'll like DM Zach or Ainsley or even us to be like, hey, I just realized you guys talked about this. I think y'all were talking about me. You know what I
Ooh,
mean? Like,
yeah.
because I mean, it also becomes like the group kind of dictates the vibe of each investigation. And we've noticed that. And even though they are coming up and corroborating the same stories, the group's energy just leads it in a very different way. You see it in different colors in terms of like, hey, this group is really open and they got a lot out of it. And a lot of the things that came forward were very warm and loving and playful. This group was a little skeptic and a little disrespectful. And some of the things that came out were like sort of the nastier spirits that were like, because they were over here like, F you, ghost, talk to me kind of thing.
Right.
And he was like, oh, I'm going to talk to you.
I like that though. Ghosts don't discriminate.
Yeah.
Well, so going back to your question about anything negative. So I think there's a lot of things that make it interpreted as negative,
Mhm.
but the way that I think Zachariah put some of this up, it's ancient spirits, and it's like it seems demonic, but I think it's more ancient,
Yeah.
and that is something that we're investigating, like really like
Yeah.
real like
I don't know if
history
it seems
investigation.
demonic, but maybe
Yeah.
like he sort of gave the sense that it was like
Ancient, not demonic.
Like-
yeah.
older,
but you
like
feel like
almost
it's
like
demonic,
older
yeah.
than good and bad, just like there
Jesus.
of like in the sense of like,
So my
it's
theory
not
is-
it's not necessarily like love and light, but it's not doom and gloom.
My-
It's
Yeah.
just
My theory is
There.
the older the spirit that's coming through or whatever's coming through, it could be multiple different entities, is the less likely that it seems good, and it seems more demonic, but it's not. It's just more ancient, so it's harder to interpret,
right.
and that's the feeling I'm getting.
Mm.
Oh, Also,
but it
apparent-
also is making it way more interesting because it now is going like way back to before there was even a building built on the
Also,
grounds.
like the
Wow,
grounds.
The grounds,
itself.
what was there,
Yeah.
and that is the history that we want to kind of present during our tell-all event.
Yeah.
After we have a few of these under our belt and we get like multiple people coming in, and then we'll invite everyone back for that major event.
So I learned something during this investigation. In our old exhibit, I, trying to bridge the gap of like Halloween, haunted house, and like immersive experience art stuff. Like obviously like infinity rooms are kind of all the rage.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what if we turned our little itty bitty baby
And
room
that's
that's a
the rooms
closet
with mirrors on all
into
sides.
like all mirrors.
Yeah.
And one of the paranormal investigators that was joining us one day, she was just like, Did you build a psychomantium in the back of your haunted store? I'm like, I don't know what those words are.
Oh, yeah,
What
that's-
did I do?
Is it two mirrors pointed at each other? Like it's not
Yeah,
a good
but-
thing to do.
Yeah.
But
a bit-
apparently we did
it's like
4
Florida.
mirrors every side.
Every
like, all
wall
of it.
is a
And-
mirror.
One
And-
mega portal.
and the ceiling and the floor.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So and
Which
and-
actually was a great experience. So if you did go to that one, it was the horror high
a
reunion.
horror high reunion. It gave a
Yeah.
very eerie energy, and it kind of gave people like the heebie-jeebies a lot. But also, apparently, it also amplified whatever we stirred up because I guess that's what that does.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, that is the corner of where I think the true crimey situation feels the most present. So
See, I feel like
Yeah.
you guys already dug something up and I'm not in the know.
Yeah.
I'm so curious because I keep hearing true crime. I'm like, was there a murderer? That
So
Maybe,
here's
like-
here's the thing. After we figure everything out, we might not figure everything out. Who knows what we'll find?
Yeah, I mean,
Honestly, there was even a documentary that we just watched on Amazon or
oh
something
yes,
that
the
connects the dot. Okay,
off the record. Scratch that.
That's all right. It's all good. They're not gonna, but it kind of connects the dot from what we kind of think that was happening in
Well-
that location, and so
I don't. Okay, hold on. If anyone who's watching this, I don't think it connects the dot in the sense of like we're part of that, but I think it connects the dot in the sense of like I think it happened around the same time, and I think it's a like a side story that was mentioned as part of that in like a one line
it was
Yeah.
like
You know
one
what I mean?
split second in that documentary
where they mentioned something, and I was
Yeah.
like, wait, what did they say?
Yeah.
What
And-
happened? Where?
and it fit in our storyline of what
Yeah.
we're finding.
Jeez.
And I tried to look this up and I couldn't really find anything on any kind of Google searches. So I think I have to go deeper and like maybe look into like,
It's
I don't know,
you know what
YouTube
I
or
feel
City
like
Hall kind of
when I was trying to
situation,
do the research is that a lot of what happened in the building that we're in, like prior to the 70s, you can't find anything online. It's before, like none of it got uploaded. Nobody put the information on there.
yeah.
And so it's making
Yeah.
it hard, but I'm sure we'll eventually find it. But when how about this? We'll come back and we'll do a reveal.
Yes.
Yeah. But with that being said, can
I'll
we
bring my
take-
whiteboard.
Yeah. Can we take a quick break so I can go to the bathroom?
Absolutely.
All right.
And cue the break music. And we're back.
Back from the pee break. All right.
Dude, now that we're on paranormal,
Yeah.
I got to mention, I did a commercial shoot one time at Linda Vista Hospital. Have you guys ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I'm a bit of a skeptic. Not that I don't believe people when they
Yeah.
say it. I really do. It's just I don't know. Like, I know the power of the human mind.
Mhm.
And sometimes, like, we have emotions and memories that are attached to objects that could, in turn, make people think that something is carrying around more.
Yeah.
But we went to Linda Vista, and everyone's walking around the whole night talking about, oh shit, let's not go up to the 5th floor. Let's not go down here. I heard this is pretty heavy over there. And I was one of those dicks you guys probably have on your tours. I'm like, fucking come after me. Didn't think anything happened, but Alex was there too. At the end of the night, when we're sitting out in the front and we're packing up the van with all the camera equipment, we're going to leave. And I had scratches on my forearm and like on a part of my back that like I can't reach. I know my shirt's not damaged, so you know it didn't get caught on like a nail or something. And this was like 2012, maybe 2013, back when rosaries were a thing. And so I had a rosary and it was made of rope. And I swear to fucking God, fucking and God don't go together. But if I held up the rosary right now, you'd see the whole thing intact besides the cross. It was like severed on that piece of rope on the cross. That was probably my only paranormal experience. But because I didn't experience it consciously, there's still a piece of me where it's like, I don't know.
Well, here's the way I look at it. You can't, if you don't believe in the paranormal, you don't believe in that stuff, you still have to believe in everyone's personal experience.
Yeah.
And like
right.
you said, it
Yeah.
could be a level of different things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whether it's, you know, in your own self, in your conscious, if it's, you know, you're making stuff up, if it's like, but you have to believe people's personal experience unless they're really making it up.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
but
I'm
like-
really learning that
yeah.
there are so many different ways to
Mhm.
experience a paranormal experience. Like, it's not necessarily what you see in the movies of like an apparition or something flying across the room or whatever. One of the first investigations that we did, like, I was full on crying and I was just like, whose tears are these? Because they're not mine.
Interesting.
And
Wow.
the next day, I had probably the worst hangover I've ever had.
Did you drink?
And no, I didn't. I didn't drink a drop. I was so nervous about my first paranormal experience, especially since it was like around the time like my father passed and I had a weird dream about him like the night beforehand. So I had already been in kind of a funny headspace about it, but like I didn't realize that like hearing or smelling or even like feeling something that wasn't yours could be perceived as that. And it almost made me like look back into some of the things that of my first year at Mystic where I thought I didn't experience anything. And I was like, I wonder if I had. I wonder if all of the fighting was sort of an experience. And like at the same time, I do want to give a healthy amount of like skepticism to that, to be like, or maybe we were just being dicks that day and we just decided to fight, kind of thing. But it did open up my eyes to kind of be like, there is more than one way to experience something, whether you're there consciously or not, whether it's a dream or it's a smell or like all of a sudden you're crying and you're like, who's crying? It's not me.
Or have you ever heard of like, it's like, I don't know what it's called, like a living paranormal experience where you're connected to somebody that's still alive, but they're like miles away.
Telepathy?
It's not that. It's like you're having the same paranormal experience as you would if it was a passed away loved one or a ghost or something like that. Only that person's conscious is like you're on their mind, and so you're having an experience somewhere completely different.
Kind of like twin stuff, or like what?
It's kind of like twin stuff, which I'm a twin, and I've apparently my mom has told me in the past that I will call her up like she said this only happened once you two moved out into your own places. It's like you would call me up and you would say something and you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm sick. I got, this is happening. And then I have this going on with work and blah, blah. And I would have a conversation with her for like 2 seconds. We didn't talk that long. And then, or I would call her up like, Mom, I need to borrow money, and then she would be like, kid you not, every single time your brother would call me 5 minutes later or vice versa and be like, Mom, I need money.
Yeah.
Or I'm sick or this happened, broke up with my girlfriend. And like, it would be exactly the same timeline 5 minutes later. Like we're going through the same thing. Mm. And so I've was at a ghost investigation. I can't remember where it was or who it was. It might've been recent, but where somebody was being contacted by their mother, but the mother was still alive. Mm. But probably the mother wasn't sitting there over in like Ohio trying to contact her. I think the mother was more like, this person's on my mind and I'm worried about them. And then that is so in the ether that it came back down onto this person type of situation.
Well, as humans, I feel like, since for as long as mankind has been recorded, we've always had this like longing for something else because it helps us deal with our inevitable fear of dying. Mm-hmm. I talk to some people and they'll say, I'm not afraid of death. When it's my time, it's my time. And I say I kind of call bullshit because I think when the Reaper comes knocking at any of our doors, that's going to be the moment we feel it. In fact, there's a country that legalized euthanasia through some form of like a shot or something. You take it and it kills you 10 minutes later or something. And one of these guys took it and it stuck with me more than any of like these fucking ISIS beheading videos I've watched. He reaches for a glass of water. Basic survival instincts kicking in. We're the person who had to sign your life away essentially. And even in that dying moment, you're like, I'm parched. I need water. And it was just flipped my mind inside out that even in those moments of dying, we don't want to go. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know if like that is I don't want to go, but I know that if I am there, that ideally, especially if it was my choice, I'd want to be comfortable.
Right.
And maybe my last moment is like coughing up a hairball. I'm just like, wait, no, I have a crick in my neck. Let me, okay, now do it. Like,
let me be comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Let me be comfortable.
And to loop all the paranormal talk back around to the horror thing, I just thinking about this right now, I might be completely wrong, so please don't murder me in the comments. But I think the acceptance or thought or fear of paranormal experiences, ghosts, supernatural, the devil, things like that, I think that's what horror movies were born from.
Right, yeah.
If you think about it, even if it's a creature feature, it's about a paranormal type of experience. Like I would classify Dracula, Wolfman, all as part of this paranormal experience of these like does this exist? Does it not exist? Did I actually see this? Is this actually happening?
Right.
So if you put like some of these universal iconic monsters in a row, a ghost would fit right in there with
Right.
it. And like the Mummy itself, like it's something that comes back to life.
Yeah.
Dracula, came back to life, never dies. You know, it's just like it's
Frankenstein,
all these, Frankenstein,
literally
yeah.
an amalgamation
Yeah.
of dead people.
And so that's
And
why
it ties it up in a nice little bow,
Yeah.
like you said, of like, you know, people trying to like understand things. Like it gives, you know, an explanation to something, which is kind of comforting.
So
even
I
if
don't
it's
think
like,
we'd
yeah.
have horror movies. This is my controversial statement. I don't think
What's
we'd
your
have
hot take?
my hot take.
Mhm.
We wouldn't have horror movies to this day if there wasn't paranormal ghost talk, if there wasn't some kind of theory around that
Mhm.
to begin with, because I think that's where it was born from. That's where the writers were like, let me write something about this mythical creature that is coming back from life, you know. And I believe it definitely spawned everything that came after it. And
Right.
it's amazing.
And
then
really
obviously,
fucked up
yeah.
psychology.
And
I
also
feel like
the
that
current movies,
and
yeah.
paranormal like stuff is what horror is born from. Just like the worst case scenario of like what everyone fears and like what's the worst thing you can imagine, but also like real life monsters of like, you know, a vampire is a sociopath, you
Yeah.
know, like kind of thing. Like it's rationalizing of like, you know, oh, you do that because you're a vampire.
Right. Well, the
Like-
things that scare us are like categorical abominations. That's
Mhm.
why they go together so well, like vampires. They've
Mhm.
got rat-like teeth, if we're talking
Yeah.
more Nosferatu
Yeah.
style vampires, and
Mm.
cockroaches. They're land creatures that could fly. And
Yeah.
that's a categorical abomination. Our brains don't know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
to do with that information. In fact, crabs, people
Mhm.
used to be petrified. They used to think crabs were demonic because
Yeah.
they were sea creatures that also walked on land.
Yeah.
And so,
And they walk sideways and weird. So
right.
I
yeah.
probably if I didn't know that crabs were absolutely delicious, I'd probably be like,
yeah.
that's not okay.
So as much as I respect everyone's opinion that are skeptics,
Mm.
I do think that if you're a horror fan, yeah, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's, let's say it's not even the realism of there
Mhm.
being paranormal experience, but it's like what you were saying, or it might just be something in your mind.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where horror, I think, was born.
Exactly.
Yeah.
An existential
Yeah,
dread.
yeah.
That is what we're
Yeah.
all chasing. And you're right. It does set a playground
Mhm.
of like, what would you do in this scenario? Or,
Yeah.
you know, here's what these people will do in this scenario that you've
Yeah.
thought of and you were afraid of before you went and saw this movie.
Let's do something fun.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about paranormal stuff. We got some time still. I'm interested in knowing a little bit about you. And
Oh,
we won't
shit.
we won't get into depth because
Yeah, we
after
will.
talking to you the other night, like I know your mindset. So let's do something fun. Like favorite horror movie in the last year
In the last year?
or
Fuck.
this year.
That came out this year
Yeah.
or that I
Mm.
just watched this year? Because came out this year, it'd probably Bring Her Back. I thought that movie
Yeah.
was.
I haven't seen that
Oh,
yet.
it's
You
Yeah.
saw that?
yeah.
Man.
I
Get
thought
on
you
to
guys
it.
got invited to all the fucking cool.
Oh,
got
I
invited.
did. Well, the thing is, because we're spread so thin, sometimes we'll have to tag team it and be like, you go to this one, you go to this one, you go to that, you know, kind of thing. So
Mhm.
I got to see it with Ainsley and
Oh, yeah, that's
Zachariah, and you had a band thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I can't
Yeah.
even say what I liked about it because I don't
Yeah.
want to spoil it. But
Yeah.
goddamn, you feel that movie at some points.
When I first saw the trailer, I was like, oh, okay, Pet Cemetery, but I was like, not even close. So
Yeah.
different. Like, but I loved that, and it was. This is what I really like about newer movies that are getting remade, sort of like The Oddity, where it isn't just 100% supernatural. There is a lot of like genuine, real human evil
yeah,
that is intertwined with it. And it's not just like, oh, like the thing that I don't believe in is gonna get me, and that's the only thing that's gonna get me. No, so is the Karen next door, you know, kind
Right.
of thing. And these newer movies that are really showing like how like evil that we experience every day can amplify anything supernatural to
Right.
just, you know, send it to 1,000
Exactly.
and be like, you know, in their hands, it turned into this.
Mhm.
And that's what's like, that's what I love about all of these new films that are coming out, and seeing that, because there's so many times where it's like 5 innocent people against one inhumane entity, and you have to see if they make it, and
Yeah.
usually only one does, and and that's been the formula for so long. But now seeing that, like, oh, this supernatural thing was born from like a very like tangible evil that you see on a day-to-day
Yeah,
basis,
on a VHS tape.
on a person who is like, this is what I
So,
bring.
what was yours of this last year?
Now I'm even more curious what your guys' is.
Mine are weird. It's okay.
Interesting.
I guess for the last year, it's hard for me to rank them because I don't rank them against each other.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I have a different checklist of like, if I go in and watch, I'm not comparing like I Know What You Did Last Summer to like Bring Her Back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're checking different boxes, so I'm not going to say one is better than the other because this did this really well and this did this really well, and it's like comparing apples and oranges
Yeah,
kind
you
of thing.
can't
But
sometimes.
I mean, I really love Sinners. I loved Oddity, and Bring Her Back was definitely in my top 3. So, like this, you know, more recent stuff like those.
Oddity would make sense.
Yeah.
And I definitely looked at that and was like, we could have done that.
So
Ours was cooler.
definitely going off of what she was saying, how you can't compare one to another. And I think she's absolutely right. In my opinion, you can't say this was the absolute best because there's so many different categories and some
Yeah.
people like categories better, but I have to combine it into a few movies, you know, based off of personal interest. One is my favorite category is horror comedy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know if that you know kicks me off of the peers list or whatever. But like, my favorite all-time movie will always be something that's nostalgic. So it's like Monster Squad,
Oh, yeah.
and that falls in the fact that it was like I nostalgic comedy, famous monsters. You know, they did a great job of combining like all the Universal monsters and getting away with it.
Right.
And it was awesome. So that's my staple of like comedy, like The Burbs is something like that, horror comedy. So this year I'm gonna put a few into it. I'm gonna give you three. I need to stop now and just three. All right,
I'm gonna give you three of
I'm
them.
gonna give you three.
3.
All right, so Sinners for sure,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's a couple reasons why. One is because I'm a musician, so I love the music aspect. Huge fan of the blues.
Right.
And I liked the take on it, and a lot of people will compare it to Dusk to Dawn. I loved it so much because the first half, I didn't think I was watching a horror movie. I thought I was
Yeah.
watching a period-based drama.
Like an old Western.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like it kind of reminded me a little bit of like, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
That's a little more comedy though.
Right.
But like those period-based movies, I'm just like, oh,
But even
yeah.
then, when it wasn't horror,
Yeah.
it was still really good.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are so many horror films out there that kind of wait
Mhm.
till the last 10 minutes to give you what you came for.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like you could have almost disregarded the first 45 minutes. But Sinners was not like that.
Mhm.
Like every layer that they gave you genuinely made sense and was important and like
Well,
gave, you know,
it also brought me up to my upbringing when I decided I was going to play music and that was going to be my thing. And realizing that when you say that to your mother or grandparents and they think that, oh my God, that's a sin. Like, you know, you can't do that's a bad lifestyle. That's,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that. Or just being really into music and how, oh, metal's the devil music and stuff like that. So that was a great commentary on that, I think, a
Mhm.
little bit, which I don't know if that was the main commentary, which I know it wasn't. But like that's what I got out of it. And then the other like, you know, political commentary that is involved in that is really great in the way it was written.
Mm.
And then just the fact that it is an actual vampire movie. It's great.
Right.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
music in it was amazing. It was so
and
good.
it was such
Yeah.
a good version of a vampire movie.
I'd buy the
you know,
soundtrack
like,
in 2 seconds.
Right.
yeah.
And I don't buy horror soundtracks a lot, but that one I would 100% buy.
Well, the
Yeah, yeah.
teeth were fucking awesome
It was
in that.
great.
Yeah,
yeah,
the
they did,
teeth,
yeah.
the eyes,
Oh,
like
yeah, the eyes.
Yeah, and that was all practical as well. So,
and this is one of the reasons I like watching horror movies that you don't know you're watching a horror movie until that hits you.
Yeah,
You're like,
exactly.
Oh, wow, this is a horror movie.
yeah.
The other ones is going to be The Substance, which I watched in the last year.
Okay.
And it was a great one. I liked how towards the end it got more like a gore movie, which is great. And
It was so
practical
stylized.
effects. Yeah.
I really love a good
And it was
stylized
nostalgic
film.
feeling at the beginning. Like I loved it.
Yeah.
Like it was very 80s.
The aesthetic
and, like,
was so. I love how saturated it was.
Yeah.
Like you just step into that world and it's like color.
Was that
color,
the movie
color.
I was watching where I kept going,
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I had never
So,
seen him squirm so many
if
times.
I make a face, then that's good.
And I was just like, whoa, really? There? Okay.
And then-
I'm just eating popcorn like, okay.
Last but not least, I have no idea why I love this movie, but I cannot recommend it enough to people who have not seen it, especially if you're into horror comedies, is Hard Eyes.
Oh shit, that's one I
Oh,
skipped.
yeah.
All right, here's
Fuck.
the thing.
I forgot about Hard Eyes. That
They-
was good.
This is what people are missing from this movie, what I think. The blend of romantic comedy, rom-com, with horror I've never seen done like this before. Plus, it definitely filled that nostalgic vibe of 90s slasher.
Interesting.
It's an actual 90s slasher style. It's very slashery,
Mhm.
but it's also a rom-com.
yeah.
But they make fun of themselves a lot in that movie. And it's very hard to write a movie like that where you can make fun of yourself, but also be a legit rom-com and also be a legit slasher movie.
Right.
I think
And,
there are
yeah.
so few
Yeah.
genres out there that can like really bridge the gap between, different things of like being a comedy and a horror and a drama and a horror. And like typically, like, I think horror is the only genre where like if it's good, it's good. And if it's bad, it's still good.
Right.
There's not very many genres that can do that. And I think
Exactly.
like, that's why horror is so popular. But that, like, yeah, it's
I-
just so entertaining. And I hate when like you see like horrible, terrible reviews on movies that are just like not what the regular formula of horror would be. Because I'm just like, I love all the gateways. I love the segues. I love anything that's like, I'm not a purist by any means, but I enjoy everything for what it is because at the end of the day, all it is entertainment.
Right.
And if I'm entertained, whether I'm laughing or crying, I watched Twilight for the first time. 10 out of 10. I
so
could
you
not
liked it.
stop laughing.
Yeah. I never
Laughing.
I
watched it.
was
Couldn't do it.
cracking up.
It was hilarious. She thought it was more of a comedy,
I was
Really?
like,
which
I am so
honestly
entertained. I'm so
makes it
entertained.
better that she liked it.
Yeah.
To me.
I spent an
Yeah.
entire day. We finally had a day off. It was Christmas. I was like, oh my God, do we have 2 days off? This is amazing.
Yeah.
I just sat and had wine all to myself and was just watching Twilight and cooking. And I was like cracking
The
up. And I
most
was just
serious
like,
moment, she's just like
I was like, I'm so entertained.
holding
I
her
love
wine
this-
bottle.
I love this movie so much. I'm so good.
Right.
But you know
Blood
what
of
I
a
mean? Like,
killer.
I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
But I was like, I love it. I love it so much. It's great.
I think if you look at that movie in that aspect, it's so much of a better movie. If we look at it as a comedy, I think it's a great
I think
movie.
if you
Right.
try to
Yeah.
take everything too seriously, you're not going to enjoy the genre in the way that it's intended. And I feel like people are missing out a little bit by trying to be like purist or really trying to be like raise their bar so high. I think you just kind of look at every movie. Like,
Well,
are you entertained?
I also think
know?
you shouldn't be mad at somebody for having a favorite horror movie that has recently come out in the last year that's different from yours or not normally what people would say this is the best written movie. There's going to be really good movies out there.
Yeah.
Mm.
But there's also going to be movies that you just like yourself personally.
Right.
And I definitely am able to separate myself from what my personal likes are depending on what is like, oh, this is an obviously good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, but I personally liked something like Hard Eyes because I waited till it was on
He
free and on
loves
demand.
rom-coms.
And
You
I
won't
do love
admit it.
rom-coms
I
too.
do too.
I do love rom-coms too.
Going
Like-
the
Yeah.
distance.
Especially
Justin
during
Long.
like Christmas time. I don't know why. But the Christmas
Christmas
rom-com,
ones
yeah.
are
Just Friends.
elite.
You
Yeah.
watch Just Friends?
Yes.
That's my favorite one.
Amy
Shit,
Smart,
yeah.
fucking Ryan
I
Reynolds.
love
Apparently
Amy
they're doing a
Smart.
number 2. Is what I heard.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. apparently.
Dude,
We'll
hell
see.
yeah. What was his
Oh,
name?
Yeah.
I forgot.
Ryan
Is that
Reynolds?
because
No,
Ryan
no,
Reynolds
his
is like
name in the
under
movie.
fire
Oh,
right
his
now?
name- yeah, he's on fire right
And the
now.
guy who played his brother
Yes.
is always great. in all
Oh
the
yeah.
movies.
yeah, he was perfect. I love
But
it.
so I just look at it as like you have to be okay with liking what you like and not thinking that it has to be the top rated movie because
Yeah.
we could all agree that a good movie is a good movie and that movie was good, but you could also have your personal opinion on
Right.
what entertained you for that time. When I watched Hard Eyes, where I think I did it perfectly. I think I waited till it was free on demand. So I didn't put that aspect of like I wasted money at the theater.
Yeah, or
I
like
did this,
wasted
I did
time driving
yeah.
there.
And I'm just sitting there going like, I am laughing more than I've laughed in a very long time. But then I'm also going, ooh, that kill was kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
because
Right.
I like special effects. That's
Mhm.
one of my main
Yeah.
things. And it looked great. It looked practical. I'm not sure if it was, but most of it looked practical. And it was really fun to watch. And I think because I had that experience at the right time watching it, I feel like recommending it to people and saying that it was like one of my favorites in the last 2 years. I won't say it was like my favorite, but and that's I think how you have to look at it too. Is like
Yeah,
personal
I
experience.
think you just
rather
have to
than-
be more open, and I feel like every horror fan is usually like the outcast, the weirdo in their group, and I'm like, don't be the elitist one in this, genre.
Right.
Like, just be open. Let everyone like what they like. Let the bad movies be bad because they're also crazy funny and just like entertaining for what they are. And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't think there needs to be so much comparison. I think this is the one genre that really does a good job of like being so versatile and
It is
being
the only
funny or
genre where,
campy
like,
or drama or the
Exactly. Where a bad movie is universally a good movie.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Sleepaway Camp. I mean,
Yeah.
you show that to Siskel and Ebert, they might not like it. I'm sure they've done a review on it. But to us, we love it. And, I
Yeah.
think it's Robert Bloch, the author of Psycho, who says horror and comedy are two different sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
They both rely on the same devices to
Yeah.
do what they do.
Mhm.
But I want to flip the script.
Okay.
'Cause now I'm curious.
Let's do it.
What movies in the last year were you hyped about but didn't like?
Mm.
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'll start 28 years later, and I won't say why.
All right, so I think we talked about this the other day. When I went and watched it, had a great time, liked it. I think it was ultimately some of the kills or something about it was just like, oh, this was fun to watch. The more I thought about it, literally an hour later, I was like, I don't know about this one. I don't know about it. I did like some of the, but they only did it kind of like the first half of the movie, the cinematography, which I was like, okay, that cinematography of the old one is there. Even some new stuff they're doing with the whole like 20 cell phone camera angle type of thing they did,
Right.
which is a testament to technology. So I'll give it that. I'll give that movie that. iPhones are being used for theatrical releases. But yeah, there's you said you won't say why?
I mean, I can, but it's, you guys are in the spotlight here.
I would say it seemed like a more post-apocalyptic zombie movie than it seemed like a 28 Days Later movie.
Mm.
That's
By the
what-
way,
I wanted more science, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I met Eric, I didn't know that I could be categorized as a horror fan because I am not super familiar with all of the icons and I had not watched every movie. So in any conversation with any like uber horror fan, I'm like, oh, that is not me.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I've like consumed this genre like in passing, like I do every other genre, but I wasn't like, oh, I'm a horror fan, so I had a different mindset going in, but I feel like maybe that's why I'm a little bit more open to like letting things slide because I don't have like the highest standards.
Right.
But I feel like that also leads me to be able to enjoy things without any like, you have to do it this way
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Which I think we talked about the other night too, is when I met her and she told me what her favorite horror movie was, I was like, no, that's a legit good answer. Like
Oh,
most people don't
okay.
have that answer.
Well,
like
Exactly.
but there's
what was it?
there
The
are
Audition.
some-
Yeah.
Audition
Fucking great
and
movie.
Yeah.
Death Becomes Her are probably two of my favorite horror movies just because Death Becomes Her was
And you
my
picked
slumber
two
party.
spectrums too.
It's my
Yeah.
slumber party
Yeah.
movie that I like bring over to slumber parties.
Mm.
But like Audition was, I really like the you're not I'm not stuck with you, you're stuck with me
Right.
trope.
You treaded down
And,
the wrong
like-
But
path.
when she's trying to say she wasn't a true horror fan, but then she picks two movies on two different spectrums that are both legit movies.
Exactly.
One-
Audition's like
yeah.
one of the greats.
You got
Yes, but
Yeah.
I feel
You're like, you
uneducated
nailed it
in
as-
the horror world because like
We're
I
all
can
uneducated.
I
There's-
confessed
yeah.
to you the other
Yeah.
day that we were at a Friday the 13th event and I was like watching the movie and I was like, oh my god,
well, you grew
have
up
I
different.
never seen Friday the 13th?
Which one did they play?
First one.
But
Oh,
she
wow.
grew
I
up
was
Why
like,
would they
oh
play
my
number
God.
one?
she grew up differently than we did. So of
I
course you didn't
had a
see
very
Fr-
strict upbringing,
Yeah,
so
she
I
wasn't
didn't.
allowed
I
to watch
wasn't
TV.
really allowed to watch
Yeah.
TV. But I mean, I lost out on a lot of things that were happening growing up, and I was like, wow, I
she-
totally skipped
she
this.
Tells
I
me,
never
she
seen
tells
this.
me audition, Death Becomes Her, and Tales from the Crypt. And I'm like,
Mm.
all right, you're a horror fan. Like,
Yeah,
what? Like,
exactly.
how? Like, honestly, if you said that and you'd be like, in passing, you'd be like, but those are only three
Yeah,
I
but then
like. I was
people
like,
will
but those are
say-
good three ones. You know
People-
what I mean?
People will
Yeah,
say
yeah.
stuff, and I'm like, huh, who?
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that, and I don't want to tell you.
Well, that's a good thing though, because a lot of people are like that but can't admit that they're like that.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
good that you are able to say, "Hey, I don't know everything."
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's why a lot of people connect with this show is because I'm open to admitting, like, no, I haven't seen that,
Yeah.
or no, I don't know who that is. And I don't know. Some people hold that as like a badge of honor
Right.
of knowing everything.
Name 3 bands.
Yeah.
Like kind of thing.
I
I'm
could-
like, I don't know.
I'm trying to think of any movie that, other than 28 years later that you mentioned that I kind of like was excited for but didn't really like. I would like that's
all of the AI movies that are coming out, like the horror AI ones.
Like AI made or
No, like it's about AI.
Mm,
Like Aya, like Megan,
Mm.
like the weird Megan Fox one.
which one's that?
That's on, is
Shoot,
that a
I
Netflix
for-
release?
I
Oh.
forget. She's like she's like a sexual robot that
Yeah.
screws the dad.
Jesus. She's made a return to horror. I haven't seen
No,
her in
wait,
anything horror
okay.
related since Jennifer's
Like,
Body.
She did another one with
Unironically, I
yeah.
really loved this Megan Fox Till Death movie.
Haven't seen it.
Okay, it's on Netflix, and here's what I love about her movie. She does everything right.
Hmm.
And I need more horror films to stop being like, do everything wrong and then die. I'm like, duh, you're gonna
That-
die.
I do
It's
remember that.
scarier
So
if you do
she's-
everything right
Yeah.
and then they still get you.
She hates movies where they do everything wrong, like run up the stairs instead of out the door, or
Exactly.
stuff like that.
I'm like-
she's
Split up.
yeah.
Say I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm just like, of course you're gonna die. I want to see. Oh, what's that one? With the guy who's like blind and they like go into his house and try to.
Oh wait, no, it's
Oh.
Don't breathe.
Don't
Yes,
Breathe.
I like
don't
Don't
breathe.
Breathe.
Yeah.
Okay,
I actually
she
like
was
those movies.
like, the moment where she like got out of the house,
I'm gonna Google what movies
And-
came out in the
and
last
then-
year, so
and then he,
I
like,
remember what I watched.
grabbed her back, was like outside of the trope of like, oh, if you make it till dawn and you get out of the place, you should be scot free. And
Yeah.
it like wasn't so, like that stuff is so scary to me. And I'm like, I want to see more stuff like that. More like I did everything I could. And then
you
even still,
yeah.
I mean, like she did survive at the end, but there were so many times where you were just like, oh my God, like she's totally done for it.
Right.
And she would do something. And I was like, no, that was smart. And I'm entertained and I'm on the edge of my seat and I hope you make it out alive.
I like mean-spirited horror movies. Like, and that sounds fucked up when you think about it at face value, but I forgot if it was Halloween H2O. I believe it was Halloween H2O.
I used to hate that movie. That movie is my favorite. That's my favorite Halloween movie. Oh shit! Don't destroy me.
No.
boy.
See, people
Yeah,
discount the
yeah,
movie because
yeah.
of the time it came out in, but it's one of the more solid.
I hated it when it came out. When I rewatched it for research for an exhibit we were doing, I was like, wow, this is so 90s. I love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I still can't think of one that I was like a little bit let down on.
I know which one.
Which one?
All right, you ready? While you look this up, I'm going to say the one that I was anticipating that I didn't like that much. Wolfman.
Oh,
Dude, I could have told you that from
okay.
the trailers.
yeah.
I thought they were bringing back the whole teenage werewolf, Wolfman wearing clothes scenario, like type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't like how, besides for the opening scene, it was like a 24-hour movie. It just happens in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
I just thought it should have went beyond that. It was like there was no, what's that called? When it's like gets to the top.
Climax?
Climax. I didn't feel like there was a climax.
Well, and I don't remember a specific transformation scene in that movie, which is like, if you're going to do a werewolf movie, you need a fucking good transformation
he went
scene.
halfway. That was the transformation. I don't think he went full werewolf. At least
Jesus.
that's the theory I got from it.
Yeah.
So I just felt like, that one.
Okay. This is really unfair to say, but I'm still going to say it. I haven't even seen it. Fear Street Prom Queen.
You haven't seen it yet?
I haven't seen it, but I already feel some type of way about it because
There's a certain reason for that.
we threw a horror themed prom and we announced it like with a good
Nice.
amount of lead time, and we invited everyone and all of our fans to come, and they did an event pretty much around the same time, and half of our friends couldn't make it because of that. And I was like, and then when I saw that it was getting really bad reviews and the event wasn't as fun, I was like, well, good.
You were
I'm
kinda
glad you
happy.
didn't have as much fun there.
You guys
because-
should do more of those, though, because seriously,
We're going to do the prom every year.
dude, I
Yeah,
saw it
yeah,
on social
yeah.
media. I was like, fuck, that looks
Looks
like
fun.
and the venue you guys threw it
The
in,
venue
too.
was
There was like a
great,
bunch of neon
And my
signs
band,
and
yeah.
shit.
my band played.
The Valley
so it was
Relic
fun, yeah, yeah.
Museum. Everyone check it out. Super awesome place. Nonprofit. They do a lot of events there.
Okay.
Really nice people.
I'm going to go through these movies really quick. So ones that I've seen and ones that I want to see. So I want to see Ash. I heard that was all right.
Okay.
Haven't seen that one yet. The Monkey I want to see, I haven't seen yet. I heard
interesting.
it's mixed reviews because I heard people didn't realize it was a comedy.
It's
when
funny.
I found out it was a comedy, I was like, oh, no, I want to see it because I like horror comedy. Final Destination I watched.
Did you like that one?
Here's the thing. I take movies like that with such a grain of salt.
Yeah, but still, like, I think
Yeah.
objectively it was just fucking bad. I didn't like it.
It was, you know what it was? It was a Final Destination movie, and sometimes I feel like people are expecting a rebranding of a awesomeness to some of these movies that are nostalgic. When I'm like, it was a Final Destination movie. I didn't
Right.
expect anything great
But it
from
was
it.
fun.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
growing up, I was really into Michael Myers. In fact, I bet you could say that up until Rob Zombie's came out, I was a little bit of a purist.
Mhm.
I get shit for it all the time. I think Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2 were fucking incredible. And people are going to comment on this
Yeah.
one talking shit. And I'll keep saying it.
Yeah.
I will keep saying it to you guys because it is a great movie. And so I typically will even go out of my way to try and like a remake of something, even if I didn't necessarily agree with it. But Final Destination, I don't know what's going on with it. I just
do you know
didn't
what
dig it.
I feel like would be better with all of these movies? Like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Final Destination, Scream, all these things. Even though some of them are trying to do it, like they're making movies of the same franchise, but recasting it to have a younger audience, like a younger, not a younger audience. Well, to get a younger audience with a younger cast.
I think it's in the writing. That's all I think it is.
I think they just feel like they need a young cast, but I think what they're missing out is the nostalgic that we want to see the entire original cast. So if they could have figured out a way to bring back someone from the original movie for Final Destination and wrote something around that,
Well, they did with Tony Todd in a way.
and he was the
Yeah.
best part of that movie.
Yeah.
You know,
that
you
makes
get
I
what
sense.
I'm saying?
mean, I also liked
What-
the Eric character, the comedic relief. He did really well. I loved his character, and the way he died was pretty epic.
If they could have
so.
brought back the lead character from the first one, who's in Hard Eyes, by the way, and nailed it, which is why I thought he was going to be in Final Destination.
Oh yeah, we did.
Because I'm like, oh wow, he's coming back. He's doing horror movies again. Is this? Are they like soft launching him back to be back in Final Destination? That was my theory, and it says Bloodline, so I'm like, is it going back to the original one, the Bloodline, the
Right.
original, and somehow figure out how he's like there? Because I don't remember if they ever mentioned that he died. They alluded to him dying in the previous movies, but never like showed his death.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. So
I can't
trying
believe
to-
I suppressed this memory of this movie, but the movie that I was most disappointed seeing recently in the past like 2 years or so, Terrifier 3.
I like Terrifier 3
Yeah.
more than any of the other 3
Yeah.
or 2, I guess, if we're
I-
mathematically speaking.
Well, but here's the thing. I was not I felt like it was too much story and then also not enough at the same time.
Yeah, Leone could make a long fucking movie.
Yeah. And there were so many parts that I was just like, I felt like he glazed over the main character, like the main group's death, and like really just like, just dragged on a bunch of nobodies,
Right.
people's. Like they got like the fireworks death and this person just got killed off screen
Yeah.
kind of thing. And
Yeah, like the brother Elliot.
yeah.
Or I think
But
his
I
real
mean,
name's
I don't know.
Elliot.
Is he still alive? I'm still not convinced that he's dead. How do you kill off the brother off screen? I don't think that that's
Hey,
him.
maybe that's the
I'm
point.
pretty
I
sure
know,
that
that's what I
he's
was gonna
still
say.
alive because I was like, you don't
it's
just
a great way to
you
bring
don't
back a
just
sequel
do
10 years
that.
later. I'll tell you that
Exactly.
much.
Now he's the main character.
Like, you know what I mean? And I'm sure that was like part of his intention. So it's not a like it's a bad movie, don't watch it. It's more of like when I came out, I was like, what?
Yeah.
I need more answers. This was not enough.
Yeah. I liked when he killed the kids in the beginning. I was like, fuck yes, they went there. Because that's the problem with horror movies nowadays.
They just did it real quick just to be
they're
like,
doing that a lot more now in horror movies.
And
So,
it's
yeah, yeah,
amazing because, like, as a horror director, you have
Yeah.
a fucking contract
Yeah.
you're fulfilling with your
I think
audience.
that's
Yeah.
28 Days Later at the beginning, right?
oh yeah.
yeah,
I mean
yeah.
the room
No,
of
28
kids,
years later.
28 years.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did that right at the beginning.
The kid?
The-
are you
the-
talking
the
about the
They
room of
killed like a
kids.
room of
Oh,
kids.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Dude, oh, that was the shit.
Yeah.
See, even in 28 weeks later, and this is what I mean by mean-spirited horror, the father left his entire family in that
Yeah.
house because he told the wife, he's like, do not open this door. Listen, would you or I do that? Probably not. But that's the best part about horror is where's the motherfucker that wouldn't do that, that would abandon his
Yeah.
entire family?
So what's the meanest spirited movie that you've enjoyed?
Terrifier's probably
Yeah.
the meanest spirit, but I mean, there was that
I don't even
scene-
feel like he's mean spirited. He's so joyful in his kills
Yeah.
that it's more like I don't know. It's just satisfying.
Like no
Yeah.
reason.
Like it's just gore porn, which is fine. And
I love gore porn.
I enjoyed that in the first movie, and I was like, okay, like I took it for what it is. And then the second movie, there was like all of this storyline, and then the third movie, it like ignored what was built up in the second movie, but then added more
Right.
that no one asked for. And then I was just like, what happened to that?
Yeah.
What about this? Like.
I thought they did a great job with the third one. The soundtrack of that one I really liked. It
I
was all that
really there were so
lo-fi.
many parts that I definitely enjoyed. So
Yeah.
it was not more like a me being like disappointed, don't go see it, I hate it, but it's more of me being like I have questions. And please answer them.
Yeah. I just
I mean,
think
I loved the whole like Santa scene.
Mhm.
That one was definitely part of the
with
best
Daniel
part.
Roebuck.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
probably
yeah,
the
well,
best part of the
he's-
movie.
He's awesome. He's a friend of the shop. We love that.
So,
guy.
but
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
very much like what he's good at, both the director and the actor.
Mm.
So,
yeah.
getting back to my point about the 90s comeback movies, which they're doing a lot now, is if they, to me personally, I think they should write a storyline around the original cast opposed to bringing in a younger cast and maybe have the younger cast be the side characters rather than the old younger cast be the main characters and the original cast be the side characters. And that's what I think is missing in these comeback like 90s movies. It's like there's so much going for the young cast as the main character
Mm.
and making the original cast, which is
You know
what we
what?
loved, as the side characters. And
Yeah.
I think we like one of the biggest
You-
things, this is going to be controversial, the biggest mistakes they did in the Scream movies was kill the sheriff,
Dewey.
Dewey.
Mm.
I almost
Dude,
called
he
him
should-
Doofy.
Dude,
Doofy.
same. But like, I think he should be in.
I mean,
all
you
the
should.
other ones, yeah.
I'm not going to spoil
yeah.
it for you because he hasn't seen it yet, but you should definitely watch it. Know what you did last summer because I think
Yeah.
that's going to scratch that itch for you.
All right, I hope
I
so.
hadn't
Yeah.
seen it either. And
It just came out.
The
and
trailer makes it
was
look like it's
so
like it's
fun.
another young cast.
And it is,
like-
but they don't take like the old cast is very much there.
Okay.
They're there. And
Right.
they scratch that itch of playing not just an homage of like mentioning them, but there are a lot of cameos that come through.
Mm.
And it definitely sets it up to that like the next movie.
Mhm.
Because I mean, it ends on a cliffhanger of like, okay, round two, like we're
Uh-huh.
gonna keep going, and it sets it up so that it's they're the ones that are going, like the old cast is
Which-
going to be the one that keeps going. Cause like everyone else probably like, well, not everyone else, but
Kinda-
like, you know,
Kind of brings me to, I think
like
they're-
that's where their chapter ends.
I think they tried to do that in some of the new Screams, but I think my theory is the next one is going to be the ultimate where they do it right.
Yeah, well, Kevin
Yeah,
Williamson
yeah,
stepping
yeah.
back in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was always the writer.
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote the first one, but he's directing
Mhm.
this new one that they're doing. So hopefully they do go a little bit more that way. Because I agree with this new cast, this younger cast idea, because that's what ruined the new Screams for
Yeah.
me. They
Mhm.
want you to invest in these characters as if you care. And I think a big argument for me is like when we look at Scream in the late 90s, early 2000s, look at the cast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, these were all fucking mega celebrities in the 90s. Drew Barrymore,
Yeah.
Nev Campbell was huge.
Which is funny. Drew Barrymore had a small role, and she was the most famous in that cast.
Well, they marketed
yeah,
it that
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
They wanted
Yeah.
you to feel like she was going to be the main actress, and then she just dies.
That's when the first
mean,
one
that's what
is when
happens
the
when
Scream
you're in
movie
a-
was innovative, and I think it's every Scream movie after is a regurgitation of the original movie. So they're not innovative
I
anymore.
liked up until 3.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
after 3, I didn't dig it too much.
But I was going to say that, like, that's what happens when you are in a yes bubble of, like, not stepping outside into the, like, the world and taking your audience into consideration. Because it's like, it's almost as if, like, you know, the cast is, let's compare it to like a corporate office. Like, they think that like the brand itself is what carries it, but it's the people, it's the stories, it's who you resonate with that carry it and that make the brand, right? And
Right.
if you take out all of the humanity out of it, meaning like you just switch out bodies for like different ones,
Yeah.
and you think that that's going to continue, it's not what people have invested in. So it's like working for a company and everyone's like, oh, this is the face of the company. Everyone loves that person. And then it's a completely different person. And you're just like, wait, what? Like
Yeah.
we invested into it because of that. So like, you know, I feel like sometimes they don't take that into consideration because like they're not really interacting with the audience the way that they should. And I mean, that's something that we're trying to do more and more with our exhibits of being like, just realizing like art that's going to be consumed can't always be gratuitous in the sense of like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do and you're going to like it. Like you still have to like, you know, listen to like your fans and everything and see what they want. And because I feel like once it becomes that big, it's not really your story anymore. You have to play with like, you have to take them into consideration and be
Yeah.
like, this is their story now. They're the ones that made this as big as it is. We should listen to them and see what they want.
Well, and that's gone nowadays. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at somebody like Jason Blum. I know that the second Megan, I think, flopped.
It was actually weirdly good,
Yeah.
you know, but at the same time, all of the AI movies, I'm still very much on the fence with. I think Companion knocked it out of the park. I
was just going to
loved that
mention that.
movie.
That's the one that I didn't know if I was going to like, and I actually really liked.
I loved
it,
that.
It looks really good.
Yeah. They did a fantastic job with it because I mean there was a lot of humanity in there, and they put that into the AI as well of her being
Wait,
able to.
AI.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's.
yeah.
Hold on.
Oh,
no,
wait,
don't
don't
tell me
tell
shit.
me.
Oh,
Don't tell me
sorry, I
fucking
didn't
anything.
realize you didn't see it. Okay,
No,
but
no,
that
no.
Companion is an AI film, and
No, I
I'm
don't
gonna
wanna know
Yeah.
that.
I'm gonna take a break if you guys want to keep going. I don't know how you want to do this, but I'm gonna take a break to go to the restroom again.
I like the cut song, but I feel like we could keep
Yeah.
throwing it back and forth.
All right, I'll be back. Have fun.
All right.
BRB, Companion. Now I know it's an AI film. See, I try not to watch
Yeah.
very many trailers because I find that my pre-built expectations can ruin a movie, and it has.
Sure.
Like 28 Years Later was one of those movies where I feel like I ruined it for myself.
Yeah.
I know
With,
so many
like
people.
the expectation, and sometimes
Mhm.
they do let too much into the trailer where I'm like, please leave something to the imagination. Let me want more, and not
right.
you know. So yeah, well, if you didn't watch the trailer, they did kind of say that it was that type of movie, but they just do a really good job of the whole AI thing for that because it makes you not necessarily think about AI itself, but like, how do I say this? It's more of a narrative on like human consumption of just like me. I need everything to be helpful for me, fast for me, dote on me, cater me. And like AI is a tool that we all use, whether it's like ChatGPT or even like social media, Instagram, all of that is AI. You know what I mean? Everything that we use is
the
AI.
algorithms are
Yeah,
AI.
we've just been so conditioned to get things faster, more efficient that we like take everything for granted. And, you know, I genuinely feel that like people do that to other people as well. If you are not acting as fast as my AI, like kind of
It'll
thing.
replace you.
Yeah, no, really.
You'll
And
be out
that's
of a
sort
job.
of that's sort of what that movie is about, of just like just kind of being spoiled.
Fuck,
In-
I didn't know anything. I swear to God, the marketing material for that movie, just the pictures and the
Yeah.
billboards were so ambiguous that I never put an AI because I intentionally avoided the trailers.
Okay.
But
yeah.
now the AI thing makes me a little, now I'm like, okay, I have to see it. Whereas
Yeah, yeah.
before it was like, I just kind of want to see it.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, it's a good commentary on not just AI, but really like the way that we're consuming everything from technology and AI, but even people and things like that. We've just kind of been like, oh, you're not gonna just do this for me? Okay,
Right.
bye. Like, just get a different, kind of thing. And I'm like, it kind of made me think of like how people treat other people as well, and how like regardless of like AI, it's just like, oh, like people aren't considerate. They don't have empathy. And that's
Right.
kind of what all of this like advances in technology has like brought us to be in, where we're just like, no, I don't care.
mhm.
Like, just do it. And you're taking too long.
Yeah.
Like it should have been done already.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there is a little bit of a lack of empathy or sympathy, whatever you want to call it, within film right now. A lot of people, especially on Twitter, are very quick to hate on things. But at the same time, I feel like with the people kind of more up at the top, the more influential people, there's such a thing as toxic negativity, but I also think there's such a thing as toxic positivity too.
Oh, absolutely.
And when you
Yeah.
think about somebody like Quentin Tarantino, I believe it was Pulp Fiction he was writing, but there was a famous critic back then called Pauline Kael that he looked up to. And Pauline loved the movies that she loved, but she trashed the movies that she hated. And when he was writing one of his films, in his head, he was thinking, how can I make a movie that Pauline Kael will absolutely love? And he's one of the greatest living filmmakers of all time. And it just goes to show you that like some stiff competition, some stiff feedback is a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's bad to say you didn't like a movie. I
Yeah.
do think it's bad to try and speak for an entire group of people.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
don't go see this movie. Fuck you.
But look
Everybody
at that.
will have
That's
their own
empathy. That's
opinion.
him being like, let me get outside of my own, like whatever I want to do, and let me think about even one consumer,
Right.
if not all, to be like,
But also the ones that
Yeah.
only think about, they take the part of like, I'm not trying to make anyone happy. What I'm trying to do is something different that everyone's going to trash on until it's done. And they go, oh my God, you did something innovative. You
Right.
did something different.
Yeah.
And I think Quentin Tarantino probably did that in both sense. Almost
Yeah.
both sense.
I feel like if
Exactly.
you have a
Yeah.
vision, sometimes that
Yeah.
works. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If you're like, oh man,
Because
this is not done yet, then yeah. But I'm not trashing on anyone's like, however way you get there, because there's so many ways to skin a cat. I hate that saying. I don't know.
I love that saying.
But there's so many ways to get to your end goal. But like,
I don't even know one way to do that. Just so you know.
Yes. But I'm more speaking of the people that like get into a yes room of like no feedback, of like, I've just gotten so big that I'm never gonna listen to anybody. I'm not crapping on anyone that's like, there's no one in the room. I'm just doing my own thing and I love it and I'm passionate about it and I hope people like it, but I'm also, just kind of fulfilled in the fact that I'm making it and I don't really care what anybody
Yeah.
thinks. Like I'm not trashing on that at all. I'm more, kind of talking about people that are just not open to thinking about, I guess, like, the fans or anything like that when it comes to a franchise like Scream, like something that has a life of its own.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not yours anymore.
Exactly.
That's not you anymore.
Is there a-
that's
is there-
something that everyone has loved and has made into something else. You need to take that into consideration.
Is
Yeah.
there a
Yeah.
movie, either one of you, I don't know why I don't know this about you yet, but
Mm.
is there any movies out there, speaking about the whole thing, not listening to the majority of the group, that you love that everyone hates?
Oh, dude. Rob Zombie's Halloween.
There you go.
I'll throw that
Yeah.
one right in there.
He's like, I had that one locked.
Which
and
I could
loaded.
go
Yeah.
more eclectic than that,
Yeah.
but that's like probably the main one I get most shit for.
There's got to be one that I can't think of it, but like I'm sure I mentioned it already. So let me know.
Hated,
Yeah.
Everybody hated 13 Ghosts when it came out.
Oh
by
yes,
the way.
yes.
Oh yeah, he really.
Same thing. I did too. And then
Really?
I was trying to be a purist to the original ones, but what did I know about the original ones? That was even before my time.
Yeah.
And then again, it's one of those movies like the H2O. It's same exhibit actually. What I was developing, I think it was the 90s slashers exhibit we did. I rewatched some of these movies that I was just that sucked when it came out. And then I watched 13 Ghosts and H2O. And I remember 13 Ghosts is now one of my top favorite movies to watch.
It's amazing.
It's actually a kind of a feel good movie. Not that it makes everyone. It makes me feel good because I was like, oh, I remember the 90s. I
Yeah.
remember when all these movies came out, or even early 2000s. Like
I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt with a fucking ice skate in his
Yep.
face.
it was. That was okay. Here is a good game to play. We could go offshoot of this because I think we talked about it very briefly the other night when we were drinking.
Before you move to your game.
And let me
Before
say,
you
I
move to
love
your game.
guests that
Yeah.
bring games. That's
Yeah.
my favorite thing ever.
I have to say mine because
Oh,
it
yes.
is a weight on my shoulder because I feel like I shat the bed with this one phenomenally. Okay, so a movie when we were doing a lot of R&D for our last exhibit, Horror High, which was a very like mixed bag on reviews because there's a lot of things that like went over people's head. One of my favorite movies that we featured in there that was so crapped on was The Loved Ones.
With the drill.
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah,
fucking
we
love
talked about
that
that.
movie.
Other night too,
And
yeah.
like, I was just like, what? It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And either like we were literally getting bad reviews because people didn't understand it, or
Didn't know
like
what it
they didn't
was.
know what it was, or they didn't like it. And I was
Even
just
though
like,
it was one of the top rated on Rotten Tomatoes movies based on high school movies.
and I really,
Yeah.
I really kind of like beat myself about it because it was like the first exhibit that I had done with Eric. And I was just like second guessing myself in the sense of just like, oh my God, I really am not a horror fan. I really don't have a beat on the pulse
Or
of
you're
like
such
what.
a horror fan that you
like-
pick some great movies.
Yeah.
That's like
and to say to that, Tragedy Girls.
Mm.
I loved that one. It was so
I was
campy.
not a fan of that one.
But I loved it because they were so, you might like it because it's mean spirited, but two YouTubers who are basically like wannabe true crime people live in the most boring town, so they start committing crimes because there's nothing
Love
to
the
like,
concept.
you know,
Yeah.
Love the
there's
concept.
nothing to report on, but they're so sloppy and emotional. Like think of like, you know, Love from You, but like as a teenager
Right.
who like just wants to be famous
Mm.
and like to commit crimes. Like that was the energy that they brought. So it was like chaotic. You didn't know if they were going to get caught. You didn't know if this happened and that happened. And I just like loved the vibe of it, of how they were just like, silly, I'm just a girl, but I'm a murderer. Like and subscribe. Like I loved it. It was so like corny and kind of like campy, but I was just like, oh, it was so fun. And like everyone was just like,
I might have one. So now that I'm thinking about it, a movie that I like that I probably a lot of the horror community doesn't really like that much or doesn't respect. It's a Johnny Depp movie, actually.
Mm.
oh my
It's
gosh.
called The Ninth Gate.
Oh, shit.
It's kind of more
I
of an
don't think I've
occult
seen it.
movie, and it's just entertaining. I liked it.
Right.
I liked it a lot.
You know what's a movie that you should go back
Yeah.
and watch? The remake of House on Haunted Hill. It was sometime in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
the
the
same
show?
vibe. Yeah,
Dude,
no, it's
the movie.
The movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's with
I love the show.
what's that that guy, that blonde guy that talks really weird? Owen Wilson.
Oh,
Is he in that one?
is he?
I remember him being in one of the Anaconda movies.
Oh god.
And then when he was swallowed by
I
the
like the first.
anaconda.
I like the first Anaconda.
Yeah.
Dude, when he was swallowed
Fun.
by the anaconda, you could see his crooked nose and his body. It was great.
But what movie was this again?
House on Haunted Hill, the remake. I thought it was great. That movie's still widely trashed, but there's also.
But here's what I think. These movies have such a nostalgic vibe now.
Yeah,
And I
Yeah.
think that's why when you revisit them, you're like, this feels like that era.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So here, when you go to the movies at that time, you just think they're trying to like capitalize off of remaking movies, which they still do to this day. And so you're like, oh, who knows what we're gonna think 20 years about the new Screams or stuff like that.
Right. We'll look back
Yeah,
on it. It's
but,
a
like,
masterpiece.
But now we are seeing it through a different lens of not caring as much and just watching it for entertainment purposes and being like, oh, that the early 2000s and the 90s, they both have a specific style that is like, oh, that's represented in this
Right.
movie 100%.
Yeah.
And that would be, House of Wax, the remake.
Or
Oh,
May.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
May, like, oh, man.
Dude, May is a fucking goated film.
Dude,
I have to watch it. You mentioned that the other night, and I'm like,
I think it was like
that one.
2003.
Dude, just
Yeah.
put that in the line of you got May, you got Jennifer's Body. It's like these like it has this like emo,
Emo,
gothic,
yes. yeah.
I love all
grunge.
those
Yeah,
words.
Yeah.
It's a good
Yeah.
way to
Yeah.
put it.
All right, let's see who the cast was.
But this is like
Yeah.
real deep emo. May.
Oh,
she
love
was, she
it.
was really
Delish.
really emo.
I gotta watch it. That sounds
she's an
right
emo
up my alley.
queen.
And so
I
I
love
think
all
when
those
you
words.
when you watch these movies that you hated when they came out, what we like about them now is the fact that they're shot and executed in such a vibe that's so 2000s,
Right.
early 2000s, and you're like, now I kind of like it.
Well, the early 2000s was like kind of the last we got to see of true film. Everything kind of switched to digital, especially after 28 Days later.
Mm.
Was it the House on Haunted Hill 1999?
Oh, it was 99. Interesting. I thought it was early 2000s.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking about a different.
Watch that, though. It's
Yeah.
a fucking great movie.
I'll add that
I
to the
watched it
list.
when it came out. I'll have to rewatch it because what movie am I thinking about with Owen Wilson?
I'm trying to think because I know that he was in one of the Anacondas. I feel like he was in another horror movie, though. I'm just going to put Owen Wilson horror movie. Marley and Me. No, I'm just kidding. The Haunting. You're thinking about The Haunting.
House.
Haunting.
That's with Liam Neeson, Owen Wilson, Catherine Zeta-Jones.
That
That was 99 as well.
yes. Okay, that one has that same vibe. I think.
Mm.
Oh my God. I just thought of one that was like so terrible that I was like, what is off? Okay. Me and our employees have had literal like PowerPoint dissertations about how like this film let us down. Trap.
Trap. Why
Yeah.
why is that not ringing?
Oh,
a bell?
that's the one that just came out
Yes.
with
The M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh.
Josh Hartnett
Yeah.
film.
I'm a huge Sign. I've loved Signs.
Dude,
Yeah.
that
Love
movie
Signs.
scared the fucking
It-
shit out of me.
Aliens scare me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you haven't seen it.
Those type of-
Trap? No,
Yeah,
no. I
okay.
didn't watch Old either. I know that was another one he came
Oh
out with.
yeah, that was
Better,
very
but,
very
but,
meh.
like,
I don't know.
I would say
Well, here's what was we both kind of came in with, and we shouldn't do this, right? But with like preconceived notions of what to expect, what we
Mhm.
thought it was going to be like. And I thought it was going to be like this movie called Mr. Brooks with
Dane Cook and
Oh my
fucking-
God!
Yeah.
Yes, Dane Cook.
Kills him
yes,
with the shovel.
yes, yeah. But the whole
More of
premise
a
of
true
like
crime
this
horror movie.
guy,
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
guy living a double life and like kind of hiding the fact that he has this insatiable need to murder people and still try to be an upstanding, citizen and father and husband and all of that. And I was like, that's what this is going to be,
Right.
right? And it just felt like a long music video.
Yeah.
And I was like, Smile did a really good movie with a pop star that showed some of but they balanced that out really well. It
Mm.
felt like way too heavy at the actual concert. I was like, I wanted to see more of the mom.
Yeah.
I wanted to see her finding out when she realized he was a murderer, maybe even stalking him. She talked about stalking him and like finding the creepy place where there's only a chair with
Yeah.
him sitting. Like, I wanted to see that. Why didn't we see any of his kills? Not a
Yes,
single
that
one.
was my main thing about that movie. Besides for the
And he took the pie? You're going to
besides
take
for
the
the
pie?
fact 90% of it was a concert just featuring music that we
Oh,
weren't there to see.
and our
Yeah.
friend Sarah, who is she does lighting for like
Major concerts, yeah.
major concerts and stuff, and she was just like, "I'm gonna write a PowerPoint about how all of this is not this
Real.
would never happen." I know,
Yeah.
and she like couldn't suspend her
You
disbelief,
can't just
and
walk
neither
backstage like
yeah.
all that. Like so.
there were so many parts where I was like, "Why are we even here? Like."
Well, first of all, there wasn't as much as a twist at the end that I expect from him.
Like we
You know what I mean?
already knew.
I'll tell you what-
they let it go in the trailer.
Remember what I told
so-
you? This is what I thought the twist was going to be, which I think would have been a better movie. He wasn't the serial killer. His daughter was. And the whole time
Which
you're-
is Mr. Brooks.
with the whole time
I mean,
you're
well, he was
trying
also
to,
a serial killer.
the whole time he's trying to escape, he's secretly trying to help his daughter escape without letting his daughter know that, hey, by the way, the cops are here to pick you up from the concert because they know you're going to be here.
Yeah.
And that would have been the better twist instead of you somehow make it home and you were turned in by your wife. Because guess what? If your wife turned you in, you would have gotten caught more easily than that before you even walked in.
Yeah.
Before you even made it out of your driveway
Yeah, like
to
why
go
at a
to-
concert?
to go.
Like, out of all the places.
I think what it should have been is that, yes, they knew the person was going to be at the concert. They didn't know exactly who it was. With the wife knowing who it was, you would have known exactly who it was, which
Yeah.
means he would have got sooner. But
Yeah.
he recognized, oh, I'm smart enough to know I'm protecting my daughter, who is a serial killer, and everything I am doing is to make sure she does not get caught because I have unconditional love for her.
Ah.
I
that
still
would have
think they
been-
should have both been
that would have
serial
been-
killers.
And yeah, and she's right. There was no
There should
horror
have been
scenes
both.
in there, no
There should have been
kills, no anything.
I'll
which-
throw
But
out
but
a
not
movie to you
even
guys.
kills.
Yeah.
Like just even we didn't even get to see him stalk anybody.
Right.
We didn't see him like plan or do any of the regular serial killery things of like everyone has a process. We didn't get to see that process. We didn't get to see his, whatever his psychosis is of like what his thing is. Like we didn't get to see that. And I was like, you're just running around creating chaos at a concert.
Which-
and
Which the
like-
game I want to play next, you'll mention the movie you want to throw out, would actually kind of like line up with something with that movie, which I will talk about. But what was the movie you're going to throw out?
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
I
haven't seen
I
it.
haven't seen that one
Wait,
yet.
when
Dude.
did that come out? I haven't even heard of that.
90s, I think.
Yeah,
it's with
90s.
Michael Rooker.
90s. Okay.
Wait,
All
I
right.
might have watched that and not remembered.
You want to
I'm
talk
kinda old.
mean-spirited horror
Yeah.
movies? That's a fucking mean.
I gotta put that on my list. All right.
That one's like
Put me on.
Put it at the top. Like
I'm gonna watch it. I'll let you know whether I rewatched it or if I watched it for the first time.
I think you'd
Sometimes I don't
remember it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
one of those movies where it is kind of fever dreamy. Like it certain scenes I could see being easy to forget because they're usually just in the apartment. There's a couple of scenes where they're outside of it, but super mean spirited. We're talking true crime, serial killers. This is quite literally a portrait of a serial killer.
So here's the next horror themed talking point / game, which everyone at home could play too. You can put this in the comments or start an actual game. So movies that deserve not a sequel, but an offshoot movie. Like a, what's that called when they do a TV series and they're like, oh, this is and then they do
like
whole
a spin-off?
a spin-off,
Mm.
a spin-off. And bringing Trapped into it, which was obviously not the good movie and we didn't like it. Like if they did a prequel to Trapped, I think that would be great. That's when you would see the kills. That's when you would see this guy being a serial killer. But the number one movie I think there should be a spin-off is 13 Ghosts.
Good
They should do
point.
a spin-off of The Jackal.
Oh yeah.
Specifically a Jackal. And from there, they could do one of each character. Every 13
but
ghost.
you said this
Yeah.
a lot too. There's another movie that you always mention when you talk about like that deserve,
a prequel?
a
Or sequel.
prequel, a spin-off, a whatever, and it's Evil Dead.
Oh yeah. So here's the thing about Evil Dead. They're doing all these new movies, and I like every one of them in their own right, but not think some are better than others. Obviously, the original was innovative, and Sam Raimi basically started a genre. I think he's amazing. Actually, I think a lot of his movies that aren't horror are really good. My favorite Doctor Strange movie is the Sam Raimi one.
I loved that one. I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
such bad reviews.
Yeah.
So many
really
nods
enjoyed
to
it,
Evil
and
Dead
it-
in that movie.
Yeah.
So many.
I think there's like a blatant one at
Yeah.
the end, maybe post-credit scene.
Yeah. Oh, where there's one where she comes out of these rocks and she does the
Yeah.
thing. And then there's one where you see the car that's in every movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one where Bruce Campbell, his hand takes over,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh, that's Evil Dead for sure.
Yeah.
When his hand gets cut off. And there's like even if you look behind him, why I think Doctor Strange kind of ends up looking like a Deadite at one point.
Yeah.
The makeup is exactly Deadite.
Yeah.
And then behind, when they're at some kind of place where they're at, it looks like the portal that in Army of Darkness that takes them to like Army of Dark,
The old
the
times.
old time, yeah. And so this is my idea of a spin-off / sequel would be and I don't know why they never thought of this, but what is the professor's name in all the movies?
Raymond Noby.
Okay. I don't know.
He's
Maybe.
like, wait,
it's the
maybe,
person that's
actually.
talking on the reel to reel. Where there's like, I went to the ruins of Kadarn or whatever.
Mhm.
Kadar. I can't say it. That's one of them. Kadan. I can't pronounce
Okay.
it. Plus I had a couple of drinks. That movie,
Yeah.
him going to the ruins.
Yeah.
Why has that never been like, and he goes, I brought something home with me and it's followed me to this cabin.
Yeah.
Like, how do I know the actual, like,
To see
yeah.
where everything in the cabin
Yeah.
originated.
Yeah. And
The writing of the
it
Necronomicon.
should be the professor or doctor who went in did the excavation to find the dagger, to find the Necronomicon.
like the
that
beginning of The
movie.
Exorcist.
Yeah, that movie where he's actually in the ruins, kind of like Indiana Jones meets Evil Dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why
Fuck
are they doing these weird offshoot, like, different universe, different same movie, same universe, different, storyline.
Right.
Like, which is great. They're all good in their own right, and not so good in their own right. But like at the same time, it's just like, why have you never thought of doing that?
Yeah.
Like a sequel.
I'm sure they have. I wonder why it's never come to be though, because I can't imagine that we're the only ones like thinking about it. So
I want them to do it if they do it well.
Yeah.
You know? Like if
and
there's
maybe
a
that's
fan-
what it is, because if you do go into a prequel, I feel like there's a higher standard in terms of like obviously you are leading up to the Big Bang, the big, thing that made you popular, so you have to give it a good send off. You can't just half ass it. So
Right.
I'm wondering if there's like what roadblocks there are to get to that, because you're not just creating something new. You are like, filling in like an already pumped up lore. And I'm sure there is like fan fiction and like all of this stuff that is already out there that is like, kind of almost hard to compete with, especially when you are a franchise that big of like, well, how do you do that and do it well and do it in a way where it's like, serves the movie right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that would be probably, and I see you have an Evil Dead poster right there. That's awesome.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite
yeah.
horror film ever.
Yeah.
I would say that would be probably the most anticipated sequel of any horror movie if
Right.
that happened, for sure.
It's hard for me to pick one because in horror, it's rare to not find something that already has a bunch of sequels or prequels. But I can say what I think would be an interesting remake, which is hard to say because I need them to cast the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think today, if we made a Nightmare on Elm Street,
Mm-hmm.
it would be fucking stellar. Obviously, we need Robert Englund back.
Yeah.
Ditch the old cast. I don't need Heather back. I don't need anybody back.
Yeah.
I just need Robert back, and that's like my only qualifier. But with the CGI and the dream
I
sequences,
kind of remember there being rumors about that.
dude,
Ooh.
that would be
So-
sweet.
I might have dreamt it because I want the same thing. So I necessarily, we all don't want sequels because we always feel like they're always going to be bad. But if they were ever to, because that's my favorite horror icon is Freddy.
Freddy,
Krueger.
yeah.
And so if they were, it cannot be anyone else but him. When they did do the remake, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I forget.
With
like,
Jackie Earl Haley.
Yeah, great casting, which I thought at first, but when I'm like, oh, that's I think is a great casting for Freddy. But at the same time, when I went and watched it, I was like, it can't be anyone but him.
Nope.
It can't be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Robert Englund brought a charm to Freddy that just lacks with other people. And with Jackie Earl Haley, he played Rorschach in Watchmen.
Yeah.
And so I was a little hyped about that. But I don't know. That one was just so fucking bad. I liked it, I think, when I first saw it. And, I was born in 93, so a lot of the movies that I enjoy are like universally known to be bad. Maybe that's why I like Rob Zombie's Halloween. Everybody likes this implication bullshit. Fuck implication. Show it to me. I want to see someone's head getting cut off.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like Rob Zombie did with his Halloweens. And yeah, there was nothing I could remember in specific from the reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street. So with the modern day CGI that we have and how good things have gotten, those dream sequences would be fucking insanity.
Yeah.
If they did a cross between CGI and practical, they'd have to do practical in all of the right practical ways.
The deaths and
like there's, obviously his makeup, all that kind of stuff. Like that, if they did that and just said, okay, to get across what we originally wanted to get across, we need to use CGI, I could accept that. I'd be like, great, that would be awesome. I'm a little bit on the cusp of that because the remakes, I don't know, but I think if they were going to do a remake, it would have not remake it. It can't be a remake.
Yeah.
It's got to be a sequel. It's got to be a sequel. Can't be a remake. Yeah.
Okay.
It's got to be a sequel or a prequel. Most likely a sequel because Robert Englund is older. But I guess it doesn't matter because he's got a lot of makeup on. But
we'll bring him back with like a new cast. Don't give us the fanfare.
Yeah.
Don't give us the fucking Easter eggs of the old one. Like Alien Romulus tried too hard to play up the fanfare. I liked Romulus, by the way.
I liked it too.
Yeah, I loved that movie. It got a lot of shit, but I think it was because of that fanfare. And that's where these remakes and reboots could get a little bit annoying, is when they get too self-referential. It's like, just be a fucking movie.
I like
be a
the
good
Easter
one.
eggs. I think you're right. If you go too hard on that, then maybe it's just too much.
Right.
But that was actually one of the only
I feel
movies.
Like Romulus, though,
I
did
would
a
say
good job
they did a great
about,
job.
like, so I'm not a big Alien fan. I didn't really watch a lot of them. And if I did, it was against my will. So I didn't really consume it, or like, you know what I mean? But when I saw it, I was like, I know I haven't seen this for the first time. I definitely had. So I was like, oh, okay. I was like begrudgingly reminded of it, but I genuinely enjoyed it. So I didn't recognize as many of the references because I wasn't necessarily a fan at that time. But after Romulus, I genuinely kind of was. And I was like, I think I have to revisit this because I genuinely enjoyed that and had a good time. And I think it was because even if it was a reference, it wasn't so gratuitous that it didn't serve a newcomer, that like it didn't go over my head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It still served me in the now versus just, this is just for you. And if you didn't see it, you're not going to get it kind of thing.
That is my exception to the movie of a younger cast. For some reason, they did that well.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's a great movie or not, they did bring in a younger cast in well. And I think it's because I understood it was a timeline in between the first one and the second one, and that there was going to be a whole new crew.
Yeah.
And they're the same age of maybe the original crew, even though if you look at the original crew, they look
all
older.
They all look 60.
And so that makes a little bit of sense. And I think the storyline about why they were on that ship and where they were going and what was happening made a little more sense. But, there's a lot of holes in there, but there's also a lot of entertainment in that movie.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a lot of throwbacks. And to me, as someone that likes nostalgic, I think you need a little bit of those Easter eggs in there. And so that way you're like, I think that first Star Wars, that when they came back, when Disney owned it, I forget the name of that one because I'm not
The Force Awakens.
Yeah. Like they did, that's what that movie was about. We want to bring the nostalgic back. It's probably not going to be a good movie. Now we got you because of the nostalgic, and then we're going to start writing some good ones. But actually, they didn't write some good ones. The best one was Rogue One. That's
Dude, Rogue One. Fuck, the director of that movie also directed some fucking slammers.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I got it backwards. He didn't direct some fucking slammers. He directed and I was so shocked to find this out because of how badly I disliked this movie. The new Jurassic Park. The guy who made Rogue One made the new Jurassic Park with Scarlett Johansson.
That the one that's out now?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
It was, well, I don't want to say anything.
Aw, man.
I mean,
Jurassic Park is a horror adjacent movie, which a lot of people don't understand.
yeah.
Yeah, but I do. Like, anyone that comes in that's like, oh, I want to buy this Freddy thing, they see Jurassic Park. Holy shit, Jurassic Park, I'll get that too.
Yeah.
And I go, holy shit. I
Yeah.
like literally I didn't know that until opening up, a horror themed store, that there is so much like
There's so much overlap.
overlap
Yeah.
of this, like, it's such a horror adjacent type of movie.
Right.
And that's where I feel like we kind of started, going around with the purists in Horror High Reunion, is that there were a lot of movies in there that were like adjacent, but to me was still considered very much horror, because if you think about the things that they were doing, those are horrific. Like Jawbreaker,
Yeah.
like, you
But we
gag
actually
your
got a
friend.
good reaction off of that one. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were also like, oh, there's nothing here. It's not really horror. It's a bunch of kind of thing. And I'm just like, Jawbreaker is horrific. Like a bunch of teens like gag their friend with a candy, like and try and not only cover up her death, but they do it in the like worst way possible by like damaging her name by being like, oh yeah, she's just a floozy that picks up guys at bars and he probably did it, like, kind of thing. And I'm just like, you guys are horrible. Like, I would like made those friends never find me. You know
Right.
what I mean? Because like I can't think of anything worse than having friends like you guys, kind of thing. But
Right.
I'm like, the movie's horrific. You're trying to tell me that's not horror? I don't know. But
As you were saying that, it reminded me of probably one of the first movies that I ever had an extremely visceral reaction to watching as a kid. That is kind of, I mean, I'm sure you could consider it horror, but it's like in horror purgatory. But let me turn it to you guys first. Has there been any movie growing up that you saw that like you could still remember the feeling that you had when you first watched it? Just complete visceral, holy shit, I'm not supposed to be watching this.
yeah.
I know there's two movies that I absolutely, one that scared me the most, which is not by far any of the, like, in the top tier of horror movies. And then there's one which probably sets in my mind the most, and that's why Freddy is my favorite icon, is the Nightmare on Elm Street, where she's walking in and her feet gets dipped into like
The Tar?
the tar, and
Dream
she's like,
Warriors.
Dream Warriors. Yeah. So like I remember seeing that as a kid. I think it was on TV, or maybe my dad rented it on Halloween. I don't know. Obviously, it's been a long time since I watched them in order, so sometimes I confuse some of the scenes from the different movies. But yeah, there's one I think where her feet gets in the stairs, gets sunk into the stairs and gets gooey. But there's the one that I remember where I think it's like almost like the floor is like blood and it goes into blood.
Ugh.
Can't remember which one that is. I'll have to rewatch all of them again, but it's been a while. So that one, so basically Nightmare on Elm Street is just in my brain the whole time. And then one that scared me the most, that was like, oh my God, I have to turn all the lights on. I have to, I have to like watch a cartoon after this, which was probably Lion King at the time or some Disney movie.
My go-to was
Yeah.
Land Before Time.
Yeah, was Event Horizon. It was the one that has scared me the most. I don't know if it's because when you watch, like, it seemed more practical. I don't know, practical, like, all right, so you have space and then you have the devil.
Yeah.
The devil in occultism and like supernatural, something I kind of believe in. But also, you can't escape that if you're in space. Like, it's like claustrophobic at the same time. So imagine like being like, oh, you can't go anywhere. If you're in Nightmare on Elm Street, just run out the door. Just don't go up the stairs. Run out the door. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain horror movies where you're having a lot more fun watching it because you realize that's not real. I could escape that. And there's ones where you're like, oh, there is space travel. And there probably will be that type of space travel in the future, way in the future. And then, like, we'd yet to understand the paranormal is supernatural. So
Yeah.
why couldn't that be real? And it scared the hell out of me.
Right.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Okay. Two come to mind just because of where, like, who I was in that point of my life when I saw it. And probably the first one was The Ring because it was the ticking time bomb for
Yeah,
me
7
of just
days.
like, no matter what you did, you couldn't escape it. And
You
it
talking
didn't
Ringu,
matter.
Or are you talking about The Ring?
Ringu.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a big discrepancy. There's a big argument there.
Yeah. And the second one was, I don't even think it's really considered a horror film, but it's when you said visceral, this was the first thing that came to mind, and I immediately swatted it off because I was like, I don't know if that's a valid answer, but there's this movie that I saw that was called I Melt With You. I don't know if it's really considered a horror film. It felt more like a drama, but it was like basically a story of like an annual guys trip. These like guys that like are long-term friends that like go and like do guys things. But I think when I saw it at the time, I was like, I was young. I hadn't had a boyfriend before. I was still like, oh my God, my crush said hi to me. Like kind of thing. I had never seen men or boys in like their locker room talk and in the way that they were so comfortable with each other, in the way that, you know, kind of thing. And like, have you seen it?
No.
Okay. I don't know if I should spoil it, but like at the end of the movie, they basically almost all commit suicide.
Jeez.
And because of how disgruntled they are with their lives and whatever. And it had almost scarred me in the sense of being able to see, I felt like I saw inside a place where I shouldn't have, of like, oh, is that what men are like? Like
Right.
kind of thing, because they were all like, you know, they had grown up together in some way, shape or form, or like college or whatever. And then they were all like, oh, they've got careers now, they've got wives, they've got daughters, they've got whatever. And this was like their like boys' trip of debauchery. And I had just seen men talk in a way that I had never seen men talk. And I had seen them just be so casual about like living this double life of like, bye honey, I love you, see you later kind of thing.
Yeah.
Pet the dogs, they had the kids. And then I just saw this version of them that I was like,
Oh,
is
shit.
that?
Yeah.
I hope that that's just a horror movie, because I hope that that's not real life. And like when I grew up, I was like, oh no, that's real. And it like, it's, I just felt like when I saw that movie, I was like, I have to be quiet for an hour and just be like, I hope that this is not like real life. Because that was terrifying in such a real world way of like, the reason why I enjoyed horror movies so much is because it was such an escape to be like, oh, it's not real. It's it's like a roller coaster. I had compared horror movies to like a roller coaster all the time of like, it's a ride that you go on, you get some scares, you get some thrills, you know, you feel alive, and then it's over and it was
Right.
whatever. And what I had seen was like so real, where I was like, I don't like it. Someone give me a hug, please. Like,
I think. Have you guys ever seen Stir of Echoes with Kevin Bacon?
Yeah.
Dude,
I haven't.
that scene. So when I was younger, I used to do this thing where I would associate characters in movies with family members that they reminded me of.
Okay.
And there was this girl in the film. I'm not sure why. And I haven't watched the movie since I was probably 9 or 10 years old and found it on TV. But do you remember that scene where that deaf girl's walking down the street and those two bullies pull her into the house to,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll beep it, but
Yeah.
rape her? And they're dragging her in the house and her fingernails scratch the floor and then come completely
Yeah.
off of her fingers.
Yep.
I'll never forget the first time I watched that movie. It gave me, you know, the same with how you said, like, I'm watching something I'm not supposed to. Like,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
real.
It felt like, so you know the movie Suicide Club? That felt like a narrative, an art piece. I felt, you know, it scared me, but it was like performative. It didn't feel real. It felt like someone telling a story of like what if sort of situation. But like I Melt With You felt like Suicide Club
All right,
your neighbors.
I have not seen this. I'm gonna have to watch this movie.
Of your
Right.
neighbors, where I was just like, these are normal Joe Schmo kind of people. And I was so just like shook because it was nothing supernatural. It was very normal. It was very like, just guys being guys, and like not even in like a horrific like, oh, and they're also like Satanists and they perform, kind of thing. They're just like guys being guys. Are they absolutely debaucherous? Yes, but like at the same time, I had just felt like I seen a version, like a side of humanity that I hadn't experienced at that young age yet. And I had seen Suicide Club at the time, and that was very like scarring for me, but it felt like an art piece.
Yeah.
It felt like a commentary on what if kind of thing, and what things could lead to if you don't go to therapy or
Right.
whatever. But that felt like, you guys didn't go to therapy. You guys did this. And I'm a fly on the wall on someone's like thing. And it just felt like this could happen next door kind
Right.
of thing. And I was just like, if normal people like that are just like, your everyday neighbors could end up like that, like I don't know what it was, but it scarred me a little bit to see that, because I couldn't like suspend my disbelief in being like, oh, this is a movie. Like
Right.
I saw so many people that I knew in all of those characters, where I was like, are you on the verge of, kind of thing of
Yeah.
like, is that you? Is that you? Is that you? Like it made me question my day-to-day life of not just like when I saw Ring or the Ringu, like I was putting like, I was covering my TV like, not today, bitch. You know what I mean? But like that movie made me look at every man in my life differently. Like,
Yeah.
is that you? Like kind of thing. And I think that's why that scarred me so
So,
much.
One of the things I want to say about Stir Echoes that you brought up, it's another movie that got better over time. I don't think it got good reviews when it came out. I can't remember. I know
Yeah.
me and my friends didn't like it that much, but I also brings me up to two comments. One is, every time I see a horror movie where the nails come back,
Mm.
it's the worst. Oh,
Yeah, I can't
Oh.
stand it.
that's if you're gonna make a horror movie, you want people to cringe, add that scene.
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
The other one is that I think one of the weirdest things that a lot of directors do when they make a horror movie is cast somebody that's super famous.
Mm.
I feel like that already puts people off. They're too recognizable of every other movie they've been in.
Yeah.
I think even Harrison Ford was in one called What Lies Beneath.
Mm.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and some of these movies I think were pushed to the wayside because you're looking at the famous actor.
You're looking at
Yeah,
Indiana
yeah.
Jones.
when
Mhm, yeah.
when horror movies were coming up in the world, it was all nobodies. Like Kevin Bacon was in
Friday the 13th.
but he was nobody back then.
Johnny Depp.
yeah,
Nightmare on Elm
Nightmare-
Street.
yeah, and so it's the genre where you create stars rather than bringing stars in.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Well, it depends.
Yeah,
If you look
yeah.
at Scream in the 90s, Jada
Yeah.
Pinkett Smith,
Mhm.
Jerry
Yeah.
O'Connell, Drew Barrymore, these were all,
Mm.
but it depends on where.
No, they did it well though. They did it
Exactly.
well.
They all died.
Yeah.
They all-
So-
right
so-
off the bat. Yeah.
And so their celebrity
Yeah.
status almost makes you more shocked at their death.
What
Yeah.
they brought in was they were smart in the 90s where it's like, okay, we're going to bring somebody who has a name for themselves, but maybe in the TV world, but not in film.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that means, okay,
Oh, I
we're
like
yeah,
Gothica.
yeah.
That one
Yeah.
was like,
With
I mean,
Halle
Halle
Berry.
Berry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one that I think got better with time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing where you're just like, oh, like why is Halle Berry? She's super huge right
Yeah.
now. And she's in
I
this.
think she did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I've always grown up looking at horror movies as indie films with new people, introducing new people to acting. And so it was really hard. My take is really hard to get a movie, to think of a movie as being really serious when you're always constantly looking at that actor in a different role.
Right.
Like, and a perfect example is not a horror movie, but who they casted to be Wolverine.
Hugh Jackman. Yeah.
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Where did you know him before that? Perfect
Well,
casting.
I mean,
He was on
wasn't
Broadway. That's
Okay.
it. He was on
yeah.
Broadway, and that was it. And they said, okay, you could act, you could be in this movie. But what they did is they created the character Wolverine before creating the actor.
Well, and this is an interesting point within the same universe.
Mm.
For some reason, it worked with Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool.
Oh, because
because he, you know, his
he knew
personality.
his personality,
Yeah.
and he had to do it himself apparently. And you know, there's some controversy around him, obviously, and stuff like that now. But like, he knew he would be perfect, and he was right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things the studios never like. They didn't listen to him. And
Yeah.
they knew he was going to be right. But another one is Guardian of the Galaxy.
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt. He was just a TV star.
Mm.
Had a little more famous than most TV stars, but like he was in some small parts
Parks
in
and
movies.
Rec.
Yeah, but he's known mainly from Parks and Rec. But he fit that character well. So if you look at some of these first movies in that concept of try not to cast somebody that's super huge, and if you look at it in the comic book world, you know, the first Guardian of the Galaxy, obviously the best. First time.
I thought the third
yeah.
was the best.
Well, that's the first time Chris Pratt was in a really major role.
Mm.
Then you got Wolverine, first time Hugh Jackman was the major role. And I feel like if you kind of do that a lot with horror movies, you have a better horror movie.
Right.
Because then you create the character rather than can this actor be this character?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we are in a new era where there are famous horror people. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
feel like you're talking about a time where there wasn't a famous horror person and you were a famous drama person, a famous comedy person, a famous romantic, you know, movie person. And, you know, you have people like Jenna Ortega and Mia Goth and like people that are like, oh, my brand is horror.
But
kind
they
of
came
thing.
in as nobodies
Yeah.
into the brand. That's what I'm saying.
But now they're
Yeah.
doing different like roles and you know, they're playing different people and different things. So like whenever I see them come on, I'm like, oh, all right, this could be
Mhm.
good
Yeah.
kind of thing. Because
Right.
I'm
Sure,
like,
yeah.
that's your brand. You can do you could do crazy, you could do horror,
Right.
you could do that. So I mean like yes, like it is weird to see a crossover. It's like seeing your teacher outside of school. You're like, what are you doing here? You don't belong here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I think that like the genre has, you know, has grown legs a lot more. That they're genuine, like real stars.
This
that
is
are
going to
just
be a
like,
hot take
That's
too.
that's my brand.
But I do have an exception to the rule of a famous person coming in, like super uber famous actor coming into a horror role after they're already super famous. What was a movie we just saw? And it was the person from what's the name of the movie?
What was it about?
What's another movie he's in?
He's like a British rom-com actor. He was. I always blank on names. I'm sorry. I'm not a names
he's not
person.
great. He's not great with it.
The name I'm blanking on the name of the movie, but these two girls, they're like knocking on the door to push religion, and he says, "Oh, come on in."
Heretic.
Heretic.
I didn't
All
see
right.
that one.
And what's the name of the major actor in that movie?
Hugh Grant.
Hugh
Hugh
Grant.
Grant. All right.
Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant did a great. I'm scared of Hugh Grant now.
Yes.
I was like,
Okay,
oh.
but like low key,
Yeah.
I was always scared of Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, and I don't know if it's because he's coming off of a lull of not being in any movies recently, but then again, I haven't been following his
Yeah.
career, and he did a great
He's
job.
a rom-com guy. You know, I
But
see
he
him
scared me in that
on.
movie. I was like,
I see him on Notting
yeah.
Hill and you know all of these things.
Was he in Love
where,
Actually?
Yeah,
Yes,
like
yes.
he's that guy, but like at the same time, like that same sparkle in his eye and cute little smile
You know what, maybe-
works perfectly for being like giving the same smile for a sinister moment. I think I watched an interview with Penn Badgley that said this really well, and they were talking to him about like, how are you so creepy in you? How have you like cultivated that like and been able to do that? And he's like, you act normal in a horrific setting.
Mm.
And like Hugh being Hugh and being like the rom-com guy in a horrific setting is so eerie.
Yeah.
And it's so like you're taking pleasure in this and like that translated so well of being like this once like heartthrob, like, English gentleman over to being like, oh, I like to torture girls that give me pamphlets because I hate solicitors.
I also have one other exception to that rule was Silence of the Lambs.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, you did a good job.
Yeah, Jodie Foster was
yeah,
pretty famous
Jodie
too.
Foster. Yeah, that's another one of my favorite genres is the true crime horror genre.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
like Seven.
yeah, Seven. Oh, I love Seven.
Dude, fucking
Yeah.
great.
And where
movie.
Brad Pitt was in it, but he wasn't that well known back then.
Yeah, I mean Morgan
Yeah.
Freeman was.
Morgan Freeman. Yeah, it's true.
And so was
But Morgan Freeman, I felt like.
But I think
could-
that was a
good
yeah,
yeah,
type of
he's-
movie to be in.
right.
Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah.
was supposed to be Denzel. Oh, actually, no. Denzel was supposed to be Brad Pitt's character,
Yes.
but he turned it down.
Oh.
So we've got probably a flight to make in 42
Yeah,
minutes.
that's true.
And so, but what I need to make sure we cover for the people at home is going to be some more of the museum. So,
Okay.
Well,
I mean,
let me go to the bathroom at that note.
perfect.
Wait,
I actually
need
have
to
to
go
too.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
We'll
all
take a
need to-
break.
Bathroom
Yeah.
break.
All right.
Okay.
Break. All right, now we're back from another pee break. So before we close out, because we got a flight to make here pretty soon, and we stop at the Mystic Museum every single time we're in town. Now the Horror Bodega is going to be added to that list. It wasn't around the last time we went. When did it open?
Around Thanksgiving.
Okay,
Yeah.
so literally I swear to God, the last time we went was on Thanksgiving we went to Disneyland for Thanksgiving. So
Oh, wow. It was like literally the week after. I
Yeah,
think.
no, a week
that's why.
before. It was
The
the
week before.
23rd.
The 23rd.
It was the 23rd, so it was like 2 days before Thanksgiving. It was open.
damn, well now I don't have an excuse. So thanks.
No, you were going to Disneyland is a pretty good excuse, like.
But I want to give people at home like a good idea of what they either need to go travel to, or if you're in Southern California and you haven't been already, you need to go to, or if you've already gone, keep going. So part museum, part museum, part exhibit. I mean, what do you guys consider the museum?
I literally kind of like do that. I go, it's part museum, part interactive, immersive experience, and part photo op gallery.
Which is the best part.
Yeah.
Your guys'
Yeah.
photo ops are fucking, and you build all of those, right?
We do it all. We all do
both.
it together. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do it together,
Incredible. Incredible.
This one was probably like, we have very strong opinions, as you could tell. And they're,
I'm open.
we have very like different perspectives as well in terms of horror. So with this one,
Which
we
Hold on.
is-
So
spent-
what is it?
It's
it's
called
TGL, Total Grotesque Live,
A take on?
which is a take on TRL or Total Request Live, where, in the early 2000s, people would call up and like
And the
You know,
host is Carson Daly. What's
Carson
your
Daly.
guys' host name?
Carnage Daily. And, everyone would vote on their favorite song and they would give like the top 10 rankings every day. And basically for an entire year during Horror High, we asked everyone to vote on, I made them take a little pop quiz. And two of the questions was, what made you a horror fan? And what do you want to see in the next exhibit? So we took literally thousands of pop quizzes and, we put them all in a spreadsheet and categorized everything. And we took out anything we had already done before. Actually, not everything, because we did remakes of certain things. And he picked his 5, I picked mine. And we were like, okay, this is it. This is the list. This is everyone's favorite movies. Like, this is how we're going to do it.
We also did you can actually vote through our Instagram page.
Yeah.
So very much like TRL, where you would call in and vote, you could not only fill out the survey in the exhibit before, but during our build,
Yeah.
you could make a vote then, determining what the other few are that weren't there yet.
Yeah.
Mm,
And you can still do that.
wow.
So the theory is that still go to our Instagram page on any post. It doesn't matter because we have a lot of different types of posts. You say, this is one of my favorite movies I would like to see in the exhibit. And then we will rotate the top 10 based on the current vote, just like TRL.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so the fans have an option.
Yeah,
to see that kind of
they are
stuff.
participating.
It's
It's immersive before you even come.
Yeah.
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 But
want
it's also like there were so many things happening outside and of like Mystic Museum and the economy and how hard things were being, and we definitely wanted to make sure we had so much mixed feedback of like Horror High Reunion.
In
and
what way?
in that, like, one thing that I didn't realize is if they don't understand it, it's an empty room.
Mm.
It might as well be an empty room. And that's something different than like these art installation immersive experiences where like you don't have to understand bubbles. Bubbles is bubbles. You know what I mean? Like, or mirrors. Mirrors are mirrors kind of thing. And so like that's what kind of holds us back, is that if they don't understand it, they don't know what they're looking at, and they don't understand like the significance of that in that film.
Yeah, one of the
So,
things we
yeah.
got was like, oh, they have less experiences in this one, and we actually had more by double.
Yeah, we had more by double. We had
By
like
double.
yeah,
Which is insanity.
And, but because you couldn't like they didn't perceive it, it just wasn't taken well. So I mean, I was like, okay. He was like, we have to go back to basics. We have to go back to what people enjoyed and what we're good at. And
So
I
we
was
gave
like,
them the option.
so we were like, okay, this is just for you guys. You know, I mean, yes, of course we picked our favorites. And when I say favorites, I mean, I saw something on the list and was like, oh, I know what to do with that
Mm.
kind of thing. And I'm also a huge fan. Why haven't we done that yet? So it wasn't like I looked down at number like 50, like anything we picked was in the top 20 of like what we were, you know,
What the fans
what
already
the fans
voted
voted on.
Yeah.
If anything was left out, it was like, yeah, you're new here because we did that a bunch. Like there was
Right.
a lot of like Evil Deads, and I'm like, we've
Oh,
done that.
yeah.
We've done that, you know, or something like that.
Now, how long
yeah.
do you guys keep each exhibit up?
about a year.
So okay.
Like 10 months in, because we take about 2 to like tear down and redo.
This
Yeah.
particular one, we're doing something different because you still get to vote and actually be a person in like affecting the outcome of the top 10. It'll be a little bit longer so you could see the rotation of everything that's different. And the cool thing about this exhibit is that there is an interaction, which is a dagger, and you buy the dagger or the upgrade experience where you get the dagger and you'll stab certain things throughout the exhibit with the dagger. And that is an activation device that activates things. So one of the reasons we introduced this dagger is because we've had it before in one of our exhibits. And because this is top 10 voted by our clients and fans and guests, is this was also something they loved in a previous one. So we brought it back
Right.
based on their votes.
Yeah.
And if you have the dagger, even if you have the one from the old exhibit, which is the 90s slasher exhibit, bring that to the exhibit and you get 20% off 2 tickets.
It was a scream knife.
Yeah,
I
it was a
remember it
scream
like
knife.
it was
Yep.
yesterday.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
could put it
Same
in
thing.
different
Yep.
things. It
Yep.
would
Yeah.
activate.
So you get a discount if you upgrade to that or if you already have the knife. And so it's kind of like not only a top 10 in horror, but almost like a top 10 in our personal exhibits that we have done before and what people express that they have liked before. And so that's cool because then if you want to come back because you went there and you are participating in the voting process, you have an outcome of you could change the outcome of the top 10 and then see something different if you've already been there, and then you get a discount because you have the knife.
Right.
And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted the knife to be in there. It's like, here's your proof of purchase, and you don't need a receipt like most people. You just show us the knife, and you're like, you know what? You've been here before. You're going to see something new. And how many times did you go in and vote for something you didn't see in the current top 10
Right.
in order to change the outcome like almost every quarter? So because that is an opportunity that you get to come back and see something new, we want to extend it longer to have people the more option, a longer time period to be able to come back and see something new.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite parts about stopping at the museum are the photo ops. You guys did a 90s slasher one that Alex and I went to.
Mhm.
The fucking kitchen scene from Scream and the fact that you guys had the stovetop popcorn.
Yes.
Bought stovetop popcorn, by the way.
thank you.
Not good. I'd rather have microwaved popcorn. But it really is one of the best spots to go to as a horror fan in the Southern California area. I mean, honestly, I think around the world. I know that you guys are considering opening up new locations. I got to throw something in there. I think Seattle would be good.
Oh,
I
yeah,
know a
yeah.
lot of people say New
interesting.
Orleans, but
Okay.
dude, Seattle,
Oh, I was looking
doom
at.
and gloom, baby.
I've been looking at spots here.
I think it would succeed, but as a friend, I would want to be like, it's too close.
Mm.
All right, well,
It's too
Yeah.
close.
so here's the thing I noticed about Vegas. First of all, I have a great time every time I'm here. I'm not much of a gambler. I don't gamble, do any of that kind of stuff. I try to go out and do experiences and have fun, and obviously go to the punk rock places and the bars that I resonate with. And so what I've noticed in the last couple of years is Vegas is bringing horror to themselves. Obviously, you got the Universal thing that's opening up. You have a bunch of other interactive experiences. And what I noticed Vegas is doing is they're changing the vibe from just being Sin City or a gambling place to no, there's experiences here. There's things you could do if you're not a drinker, if you're not a gambler.
Right.
And like Meow Wolf, like the Punk Rock Museum, Zach Baggins Museum. And then this new, Universal experience. So I'm like, I like the fact that they're embracing horror, and I want to kind of like somehow be a part of that. I don't know yet. I take your opinion on that too. Yeah.
Well, with
Yeah.
that context, I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Mhm.
Because I'm coming from the context of someone who's lived in Vegas my whole life, and it
Yeah.
really has never had anything. And so now that Horror Unleashed is coming here and all these new events, and Area 15 is doing a great job at bringing
Yeah.
all these new types of events.
Yeah.
With that context, I do think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I mean, you would be a staple in cultivating more of a horror scene out here. And you could take
Yeah.
it from me, who's lived here my entire life. There is none.
Mhm.
It's starting, and people.
It's definitely starting. We've definitely got emails from people trying to be part of like a horror convention. But I mean, we're 2 people. We're very, very small team. So it's hard for us to take on more than what we've already signed up for the year. So it's heartbreaking to have to be like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
But I mean, as much as I want to go to everything, like, yeah, like I see that you guys are like, you're growing some legs, you're doing the thing, you're growing a presence here, and I love it.
So what other places? Because you said Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been there yet, but that's one of my spots to go visit. I've been to Portland, which is on the way,
Yeah.
but not really. It's not quite.
It's all
Yeah.
right.
But like,
I'm not a
what
fan.
I'm actually interested in hearing what if everyone wants to leave in the comments too. But what other places would you suggest us expanding to?
I think New Orleans is a no-brainer.
New Orleans.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's like the number one thing you guys get.
Well, that and there's actually a number one,
Ooh.
Yeah.
Which one's that?
Salem, Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Of
Yeah.
course. But you know,
Yeah.
see, that's more like, yeah, well then if we're looking at it that way, then New Orleans is more voodoo. So
Yeah.
you've got the voodoo place, you've got the Halloween place, you've got
I
yeah.
would say if I could, the top 3 would be Salem, New Orleans, and Vegas at this point.
well,
Yeah,
do Vegas. Don't
Yeah.
let my knee jerk reaction influence your process on that. The only reason I say it's too close is just because, again, I mean, Eli Roth opened up the Goratorium out here,
Yeah.
and it was fucking awesome. It was built to perfection.
He did it at the wrong time though.
Exactly, and
It was so awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was just the 24/7 thing
Yeah.
seems to not work in Vegas. Like
Yeah.
in Vegas, people want Halloween to be on Halloween, and
Yeah.
it's frustrating to someone like me. But you are right. You guys are both right. There's a new culture that's sprouting out from the ground here. I think people who live here understand in some regard. I mean, the real estate's very cheap out here, but anything else is very expensive.
I did ponder New York last time I visited there. And
Yeah.
I was in spots in Brooklyn. Was it Brooklyn? I forget what I was
Oh,
in. And
boy.
I was just like
super duper expensive.
Yeah, it's just-
Yeah.
So it has to be affordable. It has to have a clientele base,
and I love New York.
and it's got to be. Here's the thing: we both are the type of people that don't want to half-ass anything.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as New York would be on my top of the list, we'd have to half-ass it because of the price point.
Right.
Same,
I would
it's
need-
happening with LA. I'll tell you that
I
much.
would need,
Expenses are
like,
so so expensive.
Crazy funding to
Yeah.
be able to feel good about doing it justice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, yeah, like opening up a place for the sake of opening up a place is not something that I want to do. I don't even really want to expand physically, just more like building, like kind of rehabbing the image and like taking out what didn't work before, honing in on what did, and just like sort of like building a better, stronger foundation for something that is a little bit more scalable and sustainable. Because I think that that's something that like, you know, like Mystic grew fast. And I mean, 10, 12 years doesn't sound fast, but it grew like it had its, you know, its reputation before the 10 years. And now I think it's time to see like, okay, how do you make this like last?
Yeah.
Because right now where we are, it's difficult to make it scalable. And that's sort of the trick of what we're trying to do, of like how to make your dollar mean more than it does.
I think the bodega works anywhere though. Like
Yes.
I'm
It's
being
franchisable.
That's
Yeah.
definite.
Franchisable,
That's what that birthed from. You know,
Yeah.
like the thought of being like,
What can
hey,
we-
if I want to
yeah.
retire in, you know, this amount of years, what's going to do that? And when we couldn't see how Mystic could, we were like, but the bodega can.
Yep.
You know, sort of thing. So I see a lot of like legs of where the bodega can go. And for Mystic, I more so want to just like fine tune and really hone in on like losing the weight of everything that like just didn't work, and just like really just pouring everything else into what did. So yeah, those are like sort of the two things that we're going through with there. But I mean, like he's always talking about like, no, I don't want to get more place, and then he'll be like, no, I want more. And I'm like, wait.
Yeah. Well, I think it works globally.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mystic Museum or the Horror Bodega, especially if you guys build the Mystic Museum as elaborate as it is in Southern California, do that anywhere and it's solid.
So just to reiterate more on what the new exhibit is, because I want to be clear about it, so everyone knows they could go and visit this within the next year, it's the top 10 horror movies of all time recreated in a photo op gallery of the most iconic scenes from these movies that were voted by our fans and guests, and which really line up, if you were to look at any kind of like survey or Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that, of what are the top 10. And it's part immersive, where you experience activations and things moving and animatronics and audio and all that stuff. But it's very much putting yourself in the scene of a famous horror movie.
Yeah. Like it's immersive in that sense of like the photo's not complete until you get inside of it.
Yeah.
Like you, the consumer, the customer, you are part of the puzzle in terms of like, like this shot is not this shot without me inside of it.
Right.
And that's something that we like, I feel like that we try to do to set ourselves apart from our, I say competitors loosely, because like we're not competing with them, and nor can we ever be on the scale of like, you know, someone as big as like Universal or something like that. But because we're all in the horror space, they're like, oh, this wasn't as fun as going to Horror Nights. And I'm like, you mean the multi-million-dollar thing with, you know what I mean, with like 50 haunted houses?
We don't have a
you mean we don't have $1 billion?
It'd be like
Yeah.
500
don't?
million.
I think they have
Sorry.
somewhere of like $500,000 per house, haunted house.
Yeah, it's insane.
And I'm
And that's
like,
for something that's only up for a few months.
Right.
We have to figure out your exhibit and how does somebody.
I'm like, we make half this
yeah.
stuff ourselves in our living room. Like you should
But
see
it
the
looks
floor,
great. It
but-
looks amazing.
Yeah.
It's professional. It's
And in
awesome.
some
Yeah.
cases,
Yeah.
it's indistinguishable from the actual pieces of the movies. I know you have.
Well, some of it
TV.
is like obviously the Evil Dead stuff. You're seeing real
Yeah.
props from the movie,
Yeah.
so
And
that's why I
screen
say
use.
it's part museum.
Yeah.
Is because there are aspects of it that are actual screen use props from the movie. Some exhibits more than others.
Yeah.
But then also we're talking about the paranormal stuff where we have that seance parlor. That part is the more museum part itself, where it's all authentic antique pieces.
Is that where you exit?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
where you exit.
So now I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Good little segue into our sponsors. This new room that you might be seeing if you come to the party is very much of that museum kind of spot where we are taking like we're lending our back room to Horror Section Studios to recreate like scenes from their new movie Jimmy and Stiggs to put
Which is
screen
Eli
use.
Roth's thing, right?
Yeah, Eli Roth's and Joe Bagos, like their film, their like debut film for their new
Horror
production
Sections
studio, Horror
production.
Section Studios. So that museum like is very much like a
They'll be-
recreation
yeah, they'll be
of
screen-used
like
props,
screen-used props. kind of
And I'm
thing.
going to have
So,
it all on
Yeah.
screen
Yeah,
right
so-
now.
Yeah.
So the sponsors for
So go
this,
see the movie. It's
Yeah.
going to come out August 15th.
it looks amazing. It's great.
Yeah.
I think Eli Roth. I haven't seen the movie yet. I have no idea what's
We just got it
Yeah.
Friday in an email.
in an
so we're
email,
going to
okay.
go watch it.
Hopefully,
There we
we're
go.
probably going to go to the premiere in LA. Is there a premiere in LA? A second premiere, something's about to happen, so we'll be there. But
I mean, I hope. Please invite us.
yeah. But what I don't know what's to come with Horror Section Studios. It's an amazing idea. It's where it's funded indie artists coming out and him like helping create like what I look at is like it's like almost kind of like on the vein of like when Evil Dead first came out. It's these new like innovative like horror artists that like come up with like these great scripts, these bringing back the old school style, doing something completely new. He's like, that's what I think he's trying to encapsulate with this. And so this movie that I've only seen trailers for, it looks like, oh, you're seeing an authentic original creator doing something original.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think
and
it's going to be
just
great.
to circle back on like what we spoke about earlier with like, you know, people that have worked in the film industry too long that are just in a yes bubble room that aren't really taking any kind of outside things into consideration, or like the fact that what they birthed has built a life on its own and they should take that into consideration.
Right.
This feels really cool because it sounds like that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Of being like, hey, I'm not going to be, you know, beholden by like all the red tape. Like
And
this is going to be for you guys.
we
And I'm
also
like,
want to
yeah.
we also want to thank our other sponsors for this
Yes.
current exhibit, Midsummer Scream Horror Convention.
Love them.
The
you've been-
best one.
They're great. Have been long-standing sponsors of most of our exhibits. We also have
Last podcast on the left.
last podcast on the
Super
left,
funny.
which they
Love
did a
them.
live seance in our exhibit. It was awesome in the seance parlor.
Oh, that was wacky.
Yeah, that was great.
wacky. I loved it.
And then we also have Tino Evil, t-shirt company, horror t-shirt company. They were gracious to not only create a design but print the shirts for the exhibit for us. So
okay,
they have
wow.
that there, along with we have a lot of other merch for the new exhibit as well.
Yeah.
So those are really great. But we have a lot of other sponsors, and we'll put them on the screen. But
Yeah. We'll put
it's
them
great.
up now.
But yeah, we appreciate everyone's help because, you know, in this horror industry, you know, we are still just a small business, and we all have to be a community.
Right.
And these sponsors are helping the community stay together.
Well, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. And if you guys want to find them on social media, it's easy. It's at the Mystic Museum and at the Horror Bodega. 2 O's on that.
Yes.
yeah, the boo.
The Bodega. And in terms of their sponsors, I want 5% now. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But we will throw all that up on the screen. I'm going to put links down in the bio. I'll connect with you guys after to make sure we put everything proper in the description. And I want to thank you guys both for taking the time out to come to the crypt.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
We
thank
really
you for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
We had
This
a
was
great
so much
we had a
fun.
great weekend
Yeah.
going out for drinks with you, then ending up here 2 days later because
days
we're
later.
Yeah.
Because of the ash juice.
Yeah, the ash juice.
Don't drink ash juice if you come to Vegas. All right, everybody. Well, I will put everything in the bio. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being here. And let's give them the signature. Peace.
Bye.